shortest projection of the president's vision.
Banning into space, a layered defense to protect the country from nuclear devastation. U.S. spy satellites would watch the world below, detect Soviet missiles blasting off, compute the position and speed of each missile, alert battle stations in space, on Earth. The first response: space-based kinetic energy weapons fire high-speed projectiles from hypervelocity guns, intercepting enemy missiles as they are boosted through the atmosphere. Popped up into space, Earth-based nuclear-powered X-ray lasers fire their radioactive rays. Attack rays from land-based excimer lasers are redirected by huge mirrors orbiting in space. Chemical lasers fire beams that burn through the shell of the onrushing missile. Particle beam weapons with pulsing rays join the attack. Still over the atmosphere, the missile bus ejects its cargo, multiple nuclear warheads. As the remaining Soviet missiles now arc towards the U.S., ground-based projectiles are volleyed into space. Their giant steel ribs shatter the enemy weapons. The final minute. The surviving warheads enter the atmosphere above the United States, are attacked by laser-equipped planes. Earth-based lasers and ABM rockets eliminate the last warheads.
The administration's original claim for the Strategic Defense Initiative was that it would be a perfect
No, to end that abruptly. What's up, everybody?
Yeah, I know. I wasn't ready for it either, but there it is. Nice little intro for you guys. Happy Sunday morning. You are now tuned into Planetary HQ, the planetary headquarters for all of your celestial information. And today we are talking about this hot Reddit post. This post that's talking about the Irids, the people from Irides. Is that right? Iridian? Something
Breakaway
like that?
civilization from Eridani 82.
From Eridani 82. This story is super compelling. I've already read it like 3 different times. We're going to dissect it with an electron microscope. This has been talking about all of the hot UFO lore that I've been reading since I was a kid. Some of the stories seem to be quote unquote regurgitated, or is it a true whistleblower that is reconfirming some of the past stories we've heard from previous whistleblowers? We're gonna tie in all the stray facts, put all the pieces on the board, and we're gonna let you decide. I want you guys to check your disbelief at the door. We don't need any skepticism at the moment. You can put that hat back on after the conversation. So we're gonna go on for a wild ride. It will be entertaining and it will be educational. Personally, this story reminds me exactly of what I read when I was a young ufologist, but it did add an entirely new hot angle with this breakaway civilization living on planet Eridani that is supposedly more advanced than us, but comes from our past. I know it's a little bit confusing, but we're gonna untangle those weeds. Is this the truth? Or is it really the Antarctic Nazis? And this is their cover story.
Or is
again,
it the ant people Antarctic Nazis? A little bit of both, because we do have some ant people coming to you in this episode. Yeah, this is
Native Americans have been talking about the ant people for a long time.
Amen.
Who is it? The doctor... What's his name?
Dr. David.
Oh, we did an episode on him. Dang
Dan
it, I'm
Burish?
forgetting his name.
Dan
Burish, thank you. Dan Burish. He talked about this gray but looking insectoid. Or looking like some type of insect, and an ant is an insectoid-like being. We're going to make all these comparisons and cross-correlate all the data points. So, like I said, strap up your seatbelts, enjoy the ride, guys. So let's dive right into this Reddit post right here. If you got it pulled up for the people.
I will get that.
This came out 2 days ago. on our UFOs. Shout out our UFOs from an account called Rhea 15510. For some reason, I thought the account got deleted, but I guess not. Or maybe it's not responding to messages at the moment. But
I think it just got banned.
It does say
it
account
got
suspended.
banned. Account suspended. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a throwaway account or something happened. A lot of questions happening, I guess, the second it posted this. So it says this. You wanted disclosure. I am a whistleblower recently retired from the inside, and you're only getting part of the truth. Hi, so I heard y'all want disclosure. All right, hope you have time for this because there's a lot. Grab a coffee or maybe get comfy with a pillow somewhere. I've been watching the news and hearing a lot of things I know to be true shockingly being talked about openly by some higher ups in a documentary, so I figured, what the hell? You can call me Rhea. Not my real name, obviously, but it will do. First red flag there already, Rhea. And she has a dire message. That's kind of weird. You know, diarrhea. No, never mind, guys. First couple paragraphs in, already got them. Zingers. And that's the end of the episode, guys. See you later. Like and subscribe. Okay, a little about me. I spent about 8 years in the military to pay for college, and then another decade plus in part of the U.S. intelligence component that does not officially exist. On paper, I worked for a boring-sounding office in a department most people have never heard of. In reality, it was a compartment inside a compartment where the odd stuff of a certain nature got routed. That makes a lot of sense. If you listen to or follow UAP Gerb, he meticulously tracks down these different compartmentalizations within the US government, and which some people are calling the program. It's not the program, it's not a program, it's multiple compartmentalized programs within different organizations, but some of these are literally hidden within like subcontractors. Like there is a group called the Working Group that sat within like research and development group, which sat in like advanced aerospace technic group. And that was like the most classified UFO working group on the face of planet Earth. And these are like offices nestled within other compartments. So what she's saying checks out already.
Yeah, this compartmentalization is to obfuscate the truth of whatever activity is going on within a compartment so that it becomes nearly impossible to actually track down and trace and get Freedom of Information Act requests from these people. If you got contractors like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Raytheon doing a lot of this work, and then they're further contracting other contractors out, and it gets
yes.
so trickled down, it becomes impossible to actually extract
Sandia Labs,
information.
EG&G, Lawrence Livermore, Oak Ridge, Battelle Memorial Institute, TRW, you know, MITRE Corps, the RAND Corps, the list goes on forever. So yeah, it already checks out. You're like, okay, cool. But you know, anybody could have read this online and developed a speech pattern to mimic this. Let's keep a skeptical eye, people. Psych, I'm believing it all. My actual specialty is electro-optics. Lasers, sensors, EO imaging systems, the math and the hardware behind how we detect things at distance, and in some cases, put energy on them. I love how she puts that. we detect objects and we can put energy on them. That is what I trained in. And honestly, just hearing that sentence, it sounds like someone who's been in the military. That's like how they talk. The phraseology is on point. We put energy on them. That is what I trained in. What I did most of my serious work once I was off the deployment treadmill. No, that's what I was trained in, and that's what I did most of my work. That's what I did most of my serious work once I was off the deployment treadmill. So when I say I know something about directed energy weapons and weird sensor returns, that's not, I heard this from a friend of a friend. This was my day job. Most of my career was boring in the way dangerous jobs are boring. Long days in windowless rooms, Iraq and Afghanistan in the early years, doing the usual mix of SIGINT and HUMINT support that signals intelligence and human intelligence. So like signals, anything that is broadcasting an electronic signal is a signal. So like say that plane is broadcasting something, I collect that data from it. Or human intelligence when you're on the ground talking to people, gathering intel face to face. So she was an intel officer. Phone records, pattern of life workups, building target packets on people who'd never know my name, but might notice a drone overhead later. After I got out of uniform, I slid over to contractor work, then got pulled into the permanent government side. For a long time, my world was very normal. Counterterrorism, sanctions evasion, shady cargo going through weird ports, stuff like that. After that, foreign missile tests and what you have probably seen described publicly as space domain awareness. That's been being said a lot recently. Basically, watching dots move around the sky and trying to decide whose dots they were and what they were doing. The weird part started when I was detailed to a small interagency working group. An interagency working group, that's exactly what we were just talking about. Like the CIA links up with the Air Force, links up with Space Force, and they have all these contractors, and it's a multi-interagency. Detailed to a small interagency working group looking at what was called anomalous aerospace and undersea systems. Translation, things detected and showing up on sensors that did not match any known platform, did not behave like clutter, and did not go away when you changed the radar modes or swapped optical systems. I put $20 that these unnamed interagencies were either the CIA, the NRO, the National Reconnaissance Office, who was in charge of all of our satellites, and the NURO, National Underwater Reconnaissance Office, which puts the microphones and deep sea submarines on the ocean floor. I had to put $20 on it. I was there because I understood both sides of the equation, the physics of the sensors and the intelligence context. You get taught very quickly to treat anything unexplained as a glitch, a calibration issue, operator error, software artifacts, anything that keeps your world tidy. You get used to hearing weird glitch as a catch-all, except after a while, you'll notice some of those glitches keep showing up across different systems, different countries, decades apart. Same behaviors, same basic locations, same signature that never quite fits. At some point, you either admit there is a real pattern or you drive yourself crazy trying not to see it. If you are useful and you start asking the wrong questions for long enough, someone eventually pulls you aside, takes you to a skiff, takes your phone, and has you sign your life away and shows you the next layer of the onion. Ooh, my eyes are beginning to water, boys. That onion's getting chopped. That's what's up. Let's keep it going.
2 years later, they finally gave me the onion rings.
Deep fried.
Deep fried.
Shout out to the chat. Appreciate you guys tuned in here. Hell yeah. This onion goes so deep, I doubt that even after years of briefings, I've been exposed to anything below a few layers. Even still, most of this is purposely kept off Nipper and JWICs and is done in person. So Nipper and JWICs, those are the internal information processing and messaging systems for like the CIA and the government. They have their own intranets, I guess you would say. They're classified, like they secure information, but this is supposed to be off of that because they didn't want people seeing it. That is why I learned about most of what you're interested in here and what seems to be bubbling to the surface in the news lately. That's when I learned about what we call the Council. Yes, aliens. And I suspect you're not likely to see a lot of what I know mentioned, even by someone who knows it. Even by someone who know it, who have begun speaking out for reasons I'll get into later.
See, I love that about this is that there are little typos and grammatical errors, so you know it's not AI.
Yeah, exactly. But said the Council. He mentioned the Council. Yes, aliens. Already dropping bombs. What do you mean this Council? What is this Council? Who are these beings? Because you can't just name drop and be like, okay, now everybody's wondering, who's the Council? What the heck? Well, we got some information for you. We're going to get into who this council exactly is, but let's keep reading a little bit more. I've never met them face to face. Everything I know about them is from briefings, documents, and one secure video session that I honestly wish I had skipped. But it lines up with too many independent data points to just shrug off as someone's pet theory. The basic story is this. Earth was noticed roughly 2 billion years ago, long before anything walked around on land. Not because we're special, but because we tripped the sensor. Or rather, life tripped their sensors. You see, the Council is not a single species. It's a collective of several advanced interstellar, maybe even interdimensional civilizations that run long-term surveys of stars and planets the way we run spy satellites. Huge distributed arrays of instruments working together, watching thousands of star systems at once for millions of years at a time. Their gear probably makes the James Webb Space Telescope look like a kid's backyard telescope. About 2 billion years ago, those instruments picked up biosignatures here, chemical fingerprints in the atmosphere that meant something was alive here. Atmospheric composition like free oxygen and methane, spectral fingerprints, chemical disequilibria that scream, there's metabolism happening down there. You know, the basics. At that point, Earth went into a database as interesting, revisit later. So that's an amazing concept frame they just dropped right there. It kind of blew my mind. It lines up with exactly what we study on this channel. It lines up exactly with the Urantia book. I read it and I was like, where is this person getting this from? And like I always say, if the CIA is the best at gathering intelligence, they should have read the Urantia book right when it came out. They should have had people in that group watching it as it's coming out because they're that good, right? They should have people everywhere. And they should know the Urantia book better than we do. And because they understand it is a true transmission, it is a true contact case, they're going to start incorporating it into their worldview. And if documents start getting circulated that are based off what the CIA considers the true concept frame or the truth, then we should see the same cross-correlating data points. And we're going to reveal some of them right now. If you guys got any thoughts real quick before I jump into it, I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was honestly one of the first things that stuck out to me is this whole story about the council, because the first thing I was immediately thinking of was like, okay, this is kind of like Galactic Federation without using that term. That's weird. Why would you avoid using Galactic Federation? That's the most popular term. The council term is actually more esoteric. When somebody says the council to me, I immediately think the Law of One, Urantia book, and Saturn, the Council, the Council of Nine, which are like high metaphysical kind of concepts and teachings from channeled materials, right? And so the fact that they're using this terminology rather than just tying it into like simple aliens up to like just one level above us, like more technologically advanced, is actually an interesting, I guess, large purview perspective that we don't normally get from these government whistleblowers, right? They're just like, aliens are real, it's a threat, and they might be interdimensional, but like they never go on to describe like a large cohesive like organization as if they don't have that knowledge, or maybe they can't reveal it. And so maybe if this is a legit whistleblower, they are sort of opening up the can a little bit further, right? So that's what I'm hoping like this is actually getting to. I definitely have some, skepticisms that I'll hold off for now. But this Reddit post as a whole, I think, blew up. It was like, I don't know, like there was like 6,000 views and 3,000 comments within the first day, right? So it's obviously got the finger on the pulse. Obviously, it's hitting the zeitgeist because it hits a lot of points and ties a cohesive level while also presenting a little bit of new angles and information. So we are going to synthesize all that together. Tyler, you got anything on your kind of initial reactions?
Yeah, what immediately stood out to me as well is we've been noticed roughly 2 billion years ago, long before anything walked around. We tripped a sensor once metabolism started happening. Um, that seems to imply to me that there is a well-established uh, infrastructure to the cosmos, and that this council could be alluding to the council of celestial beings referred to in something like the Urantia book. And possibly if we were to incorporate something like gray aliens, I don't think this post really specifies grays, but if we were to incorporate actual material beings on this world, perhaps they're a part of this council, and it would be like a galactic federation thing, like material beings who can traverse space, who are aligned with the cosmic government.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it. And I guess we're directly implying or directly stating that the council that this whistleblower is speaking to, or the council that these CIA or intel documents speak of, are the same beings that gave us the Urantia book. So if you want to understand more about from their point of view, I'm going to read a couple of excerpts because I was like, wow, it's too good to be true. I'm just going to start reading from it. So the origin of Urantia. The origin of Earth. Urantia is the term that the council calls Earth. You can see that terminology in a lot of archaic words. Is one of the first cities in Mesopotamia in ancient Sumer. Urartu, Urartia, that ancient Proto-Sumerian kingdom that's now under Lake Van in Turkey next to Göbekli Tepe. So there's a lot of ancient civilizations. When we say the something, the text, it's saying it's the original. So the first. So the origin of Earth. The council, remember, this is information that they presented to us in the 1911 to 1933. So this is really old. If you remember when we're reading this, think about the 1911s, 1920s. That was a long time ago. People acted very differently. They didn't really know this information. In presenting excerpts from the archives of Jerusalem for the records of Urantia respecting its antecedents and early history, we are directed to reckon time in terms of current usage. The present leap year calendar of 365 and a quarter days to the year. As a rule, no attempt will be made to give exact years, though they are of record. We will use the nearest whole numbers as the better method of presenting these historic facts. When referring to an event as of 1 or 2 millions of years ago, we intend to date such an occurrence back that number of years from the early decades of the 20th century of the Christian era. We will thus depict these far distant events as concerning in even periods of thousands, millions, and billions of years. So just giving you a little insight, breaking that fourth wall, breaking the third wall, breaking the eighth wall, how they perceive time and how they're going to explain to us their council's systems and how they monitor different planets. So going ahead.
Yeah, just in summary, those passages you're skipping, it goes over the nebular formation of our entire Milky Way galaxy, then the formation of our solar system within our galaxy, the formation of our planet. It goes through all the details, the collision of our galaxy with another, the collision with our solar system, everything, and it all kind of lines up.
Yeah, and it shows you how the council and the celestial governments monitor sections of space. Constantly monitoring over millions upon billions of years, like this whistleblower is stating. So they have probes out there and beings out there that are monitoring different space aggregations and celestial body dynamics to see if any celestial body is populable, is habitable. So skipping ahead, it says 400 billion years ago began the recaptive period of the Andronover Nebula. Many of the nearby and smaller suns were recaptured as a result of the gradual enlargement and further condensation of the mother nucleus. Very soon, there is inaugurated the terminal phase of nebular condensation, the period which always precedes the final segregation of these immense space aggregations of energy and matter. It was scarcely a million years subsequent to this epoch that Michael of Nebadon, Jesus Christ, a creator son of paradise, selected this disintegrating nebula as the site of his adventure in universe building. Yes, Jesus is a 400 billion year old space god that chooses sites in the cosmos to build. I know, wild, huh? Christians are like, oh, I knew it.
I knew it.
Almost immediately, the architectural worlds of Salvington and the 100 constellation headquarters groups of planets were begun. It required almost 1 million years to complete these clusters of specially created worlds. The local system headquarters planets were constructed over a period extending from that time to about 5 billion years ago. So 400, this is even before, like, this paper's talking about probes trying to see when the life appeared on Earth. This paper is going before that even. This is pre any life in our sector of the universe. And it's saying 4 billion years ago, Michael, who was Jesus, he picked this little plot of land, plot of the universe. He started building his headquarters. 3 billion years ago, the Andronover, 300 billion years ago, the Andronover solar circuits were well established, and the nebular system was passing through a transient period of relative physical stability. About this time, the staff of Michael arrived on Salvington, and the Uversa government of our local universe, of our super universe, extended physical recognition to our local universe of Nebadon. So 300 billion years ago, the super universe extended formal recognition to our local tiny sector. It granted us our first certification, like this is a recognized, named sector.
And a note where you say the Uversa government of Orvanton are a super universe. The Urantia book kind of depicts 7 organized super universes, inhabited space, surrounded by uninhabited space, which stretches on indefinitely. Well, not indefinitely. There are limits, but I feel like there's a strong correlation between Orvanton and the Leniakea supercluster, which was discovered by a Hawaiian observatory team in around 2015, I believe. A massive collection of galaxies that kind of flow together as one aggregated mass. It does seem like an organized unit of, I guess you would call it a super universe.
Yeah, that's the word I skipped over, folks. Orvanton. It's our super universe. Just imagine a big circle of space. 200 billion years ago, witnessed the progression of contraction and condensation with enormous heat generation in the Andronover central cluster, or nuclear mass. Relative space appeared even in the regions near the central mother-sun wheel. The outer regions were becoming more stabilized and better organized. Some planets revolving around the newborn suns had cooled sufficiently to be suitable for life implantation. I do hear myself a tiny bit, I think, Taylor. The oldest inhabited planets of Nebadon date from these times. Wow, the oldest inhabited planet dates from 200 billion years ago. That's crazy. I can't even imagine a civilization that's been around for 200 billion years ago.
Of just our galaxy. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. They probably got super technology.
Yeah, no kidding.
The oldest inhabited planets of Nebadon date from these times. Yeah. Now, the completed universe mechanism of Nebadon first begins to function, and Michael's creation is registered on Uversa as a universe of inhabitation and progressive mortal ascension. So officially, our sector of the universe now becomes recognized in the super universe government. Yeah, so it's really backing up what this Rhea whistleblower is saying, that there is an ancient civilization that is monitoring starry regions over spans of million years and like charting them and certifying them and getting them prepared for life implantation. So I'm just giving you some quotes that back it up. Just keep plowing ahead. 610, 57, 610. Let's see.
I have a couple quotes as well that I found about basically like some of these larger star councils and some of the structure of how they work. But if you got more, definitely go ahead and finish that out.
Okay, cool. Yeah. 2,500,000,000 years ago, the planets had grown immensely in size. Earth was a well-developed sphere, about 1/10 its present mass, and was still growing rapidly by meteoric accretion. All of this tremendous activity is a normal part of the making of an evolutionary world on the order of Earth and constitutes the astronomic preliminaries to the setting of the stage for the beginning of the physical evolution of such worlds of space in preparation for the life adventures of time.
Life is seeded intentionally.
Life is seeded. Yes, yes, yes. And then, did I read that part? Yeah, I read that. So if you want to read your quote really quickly, because I do have more, but it's the next. Oh, actually, it's just a couple. It's the next one down. 1 second. 2781. Cool. So it says 1 billion years ago is the date of the actual beginning of Earth history. The planet had attained approximately its present size, and about this time it was placed upon the physical registries of Nebadon and given its name, Urantia. The atmosphere, together with incessant moisture precipitation, facilitated the cooling of the Earth's crust. Volcano action early equalized internal heat pressure and crustal contraction. And as volcanoes rapidly decreased, earthquakes made their appearance as this epoch of crustal cooling and adjustment progressed. The real geologic history of Urantia begins with the cooling of the Earth's crust sufficiently to cause the formation of the first ocean. Water vapor condensation on the cooling surface of the Earth, once begun, continued until it was virtually complete. By the end of this period, the ocean was worldwide, covering the entire planet to an average depth of over 1 mile. The tides were not then in play as much as they are now observed, but this primitive ocean was not salty. It was practically a fresh water covering for the whole world. In those days, most of the chlorine was combined with various metals, but there was enough in union with hydrogen to render this water faintly acid. And at the opening of this faraway era, Urantia, Earth, should be envisaged as a water-bound planet. Later on, deeper, hence denser lava flows came out upon the bottom of the present Pacific Ocean, and this part of the water-covered surface became considerably depressed. The first continental landmass emerged from the world in a compensatory adjustment of the equilibrium of the gradually thickening Earth's crust. 950 million years ago, Urantia presents the picture of one great continent of land and one large body of water, the Pacific Ocean. Volcanoes are still widespread, and earthquakes are both frequent and severe. Meteors continue to bombard the Earth, but they are diminished in both frequency and size. The atmosphere is clearing up, but the amount of carbon dioxide continues large. The Earth's crust is gradually stabilizing. It was about this time that Earth was assigned to the system of Satania for planetary administration and was placed on the life registry of Norlashadek. Then began the administrative recognition of the small and insignificant sphere which was destined to become the planet whereon Michael would subsequently engage in the stupendous undertaking of mortal bestowal through his Jesus incarnation, and he would participate in those experiences which have since caused Urantia to become locally known as the World of the Cross. Hell yeah. And then one last paragraph. 900 million years ago, witnessed the arrival on Urantia, on Earth, of the first Satania scouting party sent out from Jerusalem to examine the planet and make a report on its adaptation for a life experiment station. This commission consisted of 24 members, embracing life carriers, Lenonendek sons, Melchizedeks, Seraphim, and other orders of celestial life having to do with the early days of planetary organization and administration.
Nice.
So,
that's
there you
a
have it,
fire
go.
quote right there.
You want to read that?
900 million years ago, the councils sent out their scouting team, and you got
Yep.
like a pretty large breakdown. So I hope Rhea watches this video, because if you ain't seen this yet, Rhea, this is what the CIA is not going to tell you, but they already know.
Yeah. Well, she only mentions it really quickly that there was probes that were scanning this sector for millions of years. And I was like, oh, we have the data that the probes have. I just read it off to you. Like, that's literally the data that was in the probes the entire time, watching the years. This happened on this year. This happened on this year. And then finally, 900 million years ago, the first scouting party got sent. And so if you're wondering what those probes that Rhea, the whistleblower, is talking about, that's the information right there. It's on the Urantia book. Link will be in the description. Go check it out. It's pretty tight. But yeah, you got some quotes, huh?
Sorry, go ahead.
If you don't mind, I just want to read this last paragraph right after you were reading because I think it's pretty pertinent. After making a painstaking survey of the planet, this commission returned to Jerusalem and reported favorably to the system sovereign, recommending that Urantia be placed on the Life Experiment Registry. Your world was accordingly registered on Jerusalem as a decimal planet, and the life carriers were notified that they would be granted permission to institute new patterns of mechanical, chemical, and electrical mobilization at the time of their subsequent arrival with life transplantation and implantation mandates. It's amazing. It paints this picture that life is intentionally seeded, that scouting parties go out and they're observing planets in formation billions of years before life even arrives. It's all carefully controlled and regulated, and it's like a controlled reaction in a nuclear reactor or something, with the intent of eventually evolving evolutionary will creatures, sentient life that can actually recognize the universe, embody consciousness. I love this concept that there is an infrastructure to reality. It's not a complete accident. It's all according to a plan. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and that actually fits an exact quote that I think we read already from the Reddit post. I was kind of trying to find it here. I can do a search here, right here. So, 2 billion years ago, the instruments picked up biosignatures on Earth, and then Ray basically says, there's metabolism happening down there. At that point, the Earth went into a database as interesting revisit later, right? And that's the quote, again, that Magma Sloth just read there. He's like, they logged in the database, they knew what the next steps were and how it would proceed, and they sent a team with probes also. So,
Let it bake in the oven for a while.
Yeah, and you can also reread that paragraph right above it if you want, I think. Not from the Reddit post, but I'll read it. So the basic story is this. Earth was noticed roughly 2 billion years ago, long before anything walked around on land. Not because we were special, but because we tripped a sensor. Or rather, life tripped their sensors. You see, the Council is not a single species. It's a collective of several advanced interstellar, maybe even interdimensional civilizations that run long-term surveys of stars and planets the way we run spy satellites. It's literally just the information we were telling you from those spy satellites. Yep. Huge distributed arrays of instruments working together, watching thousands of star systems at once for millions of years at a time. Their gear probably makes the James Webb Space Telescope look like a kid's backyard telescope. It's hilarious. People love this post. They're upvoting it. They're like, oh my God, is this the real deal? And then we present to them literally the transcripts from the probes through the Urantia book. And nobody's going to come and buy 6,000 copies. But this is the same beings who are running this intergalactic operation. And their benevolence of stop getting scared. No more threat narratives, baby. But that's right. Planetary HQ, we got the heavy hitting meat and potatoes, baby. If you made it this far, hit that like button so get the information to the front page. And don't forget to subscribe so you are up to date with all the celestial information. You already know the deal. You heard it here first at Planetary HQ, baby.
Yes. You know, it's funny. Based on the way he words this, it shows he probably hasn't read the Urantia book, so he doesn't have that kind of framework. He's just kind of regurgitating what he might have read in documents or what he's been told. But you could kind of use that wording to describe it. I mean, like advanced instrumentation that makes the James Webb Telescope look like a backyard kid's telescope. The Urantia book does talk about like Jerusalem and Uversa astronomers that use their equipment to observe space. And then it even talks about kind of interdimensional beings that are almost mechanical in nature, almost like interdimensional AI. Mind you, this was written in the early 1900s,
right? How do they know about all this stuff before computers?
Next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's hit this quote next because this is talking about actually, I guess, how the council is structured, and this is going to help inform us when Rhea, the whistleblower on Reddit, she kind of explains, she explains that the council seems to have this non-interference policy, and they even though they monitor us, they kind of want us to live out our own evolution. And yeah, like we just read, there's multiple civilizations involved in the council. There may even be interdimensional level beings, which is kind of the angle that we're also getting into here. And so here I have some quotes here about how the councils kind of get elected and represented with the different star races. So one of the high-level celestial interdimensional beings, in this book, are known as the Melchizedek sons. And it even says...
I've heard that word somewhere.
Yeah, it even says that one of these Melchizedek sons actually incarnated with human biologics onto planet Earth some 4,000, 6,000 years ago as the king of Salem, or the priest king of Salem, who was known as Melchizedek, right? And it even says that this celestial being taught Abraham everything that Abraham knew about the cosmos and God and the consciousness and the universe and the origin and meaning of life as a whole. And so, these celestials have influenced humanity. They have specific missions where they do influence, but it does take certain permissions to be granted in order for that to happen, right? And so now we're getting a little bit of more context behind the whole Melchizedek incarnation. Who are these beings and what are they doing on the council? So this quote says, the Melchizedek sons conduct upward of 30 different educational centers on Jerusalem. That's like their home planet where a lot of the star councils convene, actually. These training schools begin with the College of Self-Evaluation and end with the Schools of Jerusalem Citizenship, wherein the material sons and daughters join with the Melchizedeks and others in their supreme effort to qualify the mortal survivors for the assumption of the high responsibilities of representative government. The entire universe is organized and administered on the representative plan. Representative government is the divine ideal of self-government among non-perfect beings. Right? So this is explaining the council and why there's different star beings, but it's all like a representative plan, which goes like at different constellation levels, right? So like we as one civilization, humanity, may have other human cousins in the stars. And once we enter the next level federation, then maybe it's like we send representatives, the Pleiadians send their representatives, the Iridians send their representatives. We're going to get into that. And then like we are all representatives of the human, some people might call it the human Lyrian starseed DNA program.
I like it.
And that goes even up higher, and we all kind of represent to the various different races, the ant people, the mantis, right? Everyone's got their representatives in this system of evolution. And
kind of like Star Wars, the council in Star Wars. We got representatives from every single race in the galaxy.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to watch out for Senator Palpatine.
Yeah, watch out for that guy.
Right. Every 100 years of universe time, each system elects its 10 representatives to sit in the constellation legislature. They are chosen by the Jerusalem Council of 1,000, an elective body charged with the duty of representing the system groups in all such delegated or appointive matters. All representatives or other delegates are selected by the council of 1,000 electors, and they must be graduates of the highest school of the Melchizedek College of Administration, as also are all those who constitute this group of 1,000 electors. This school is fostered by the Melchizedeks, latterly assisted by the Finalitors. And then I'll continue here. There are many elective bodies on Jerusalem. They are voted into authority from time to time by 3 orders of citizenship. Material sons and daughters, those are like the space opera aliens. They have physical bodies, right? Seraphim and their associates are celestial, interdimensional light beings, right? Midway creatures are the ultra-terrestrials that actually live on planet Earth but don't have energized light bodies, but they're not like as high as the celestial beings. They're actually like somewhat cousins to us. And then the last group is the ascending mortals, which is actually the physical alien species like humanity would be. And we also get to work on these councils as we evolve as a planet, and sort of gain the right, I guess you could say, to be a part of this. Part of that right includes like we need to be read up in the school of Melchizedek's and cosmic philosophy and all that stuff. So, let's see. Oh,
Can you stay on that paper and go to 45.4
yes, yeah. So 45.4.
and just read that first paragraph? It's another very close council that might have authority in the matter that Rhea is explaining.
Yeah, so this is known as the Council of 24, which is not entirely exclusive to the Bible. In fact, it's in the Law of One. It's in Urantia. There's a couple correlations here that we can cover. But the Council of 24 actually is something. The first time you've probably heard of this is, in the last book of the Bible is known as Revelation, right? It's this visionary experience that John gets. And, Jesus is talking to him, narrating, giving him visions of the future. There's all this stuff happening, right? It's a little discombobulated.
I saw 24 elders sitting around a throne, dressed in white raiment. Yeah.
Or 20.
Right. And I don't know if you can,
420, bro.
if you want to pull that quote to see if there's any more info that the Bible even gives. But main point is that, right, there's this visionary experience, and he talks about these 24 counselors. So we'll read Urantia's take, and then we'll also pull up the Law of One, what it says about the 24 counselors who work in conjunction with the Saturn Council of 9. So here, the 4 and 20 counselors. At the center of the 7 angelic residential circles on Gerisum is located the headquarters of the Urantia Advisory Council. The 4 and 20 counselors, John the Revelator called them the 4 and 20 elders. And round about the throne were 4 and 20 seats, and upon the seats I saw 4 and 20 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment. The throne in the center of this group is the judgment seat of the presiding archangel, the throne of the resurrection roll call of mercy and justice for all Satania. Satania is just our sector of the universe. The reason that word Satan is in there is because in Hebrew, Satan is not really like a proper noun, a name. It's actually a word that means the adversary. And so there's another story existing among the celestial history, which is that 200,000 years ago, there was a rebellion among the star councils, which originated from the interdimensional light beings. And these beings were what we call angels, what we've understood as angels in the past. And we have these names like Lucifer, Satan. But this whole calling our sector Satania is because we were caught up in this large sort of cosmic rebellion era as government was being sort of challenged. And so we exist within the adversarial section, right? So we are within the adversarial section, which is why it calls us Satania. So this judgment seat has always been on Gerisum, but the 24 surrounding seats were placed in position no more than 1900 years ago, soon after Christ Michael elevated to the full sovereignty of Nebadon. The 24 counselors are his personal agents on Gerisum. They have authority to represent the Master Son in all matters concerning the roll calls of Satania and in many other phases of the scheme of mortal ascension on the isolated worlds of the system. They are the designated agents for executing the special request of Gabriel and the unusual mandates of Michael. Gabriel is another celestial being that has a large influence on Earth and has made personal missions and revealing to humanity in a couple different ways, right? We all heard of the angel Gabriel.
I'd like to touch
revealed
on
himself to Mary. Jesus was born and said, "You will have a Son of God, child of promise."
Yeah. I'd like to touch on something you said earlier, Taylor, when you were reading the surviving mortals in relation to the Melchizedek schools on Jerusalem. You're probably wondering, as a listener to this, what does this mean by surviving mortals? there is, at least portrayed in this book, an infrastructure to our afterlife to where we actually do, our soul is preserved and we have new bodies kind of rematerialized on what this refers to as mansion worlds. These mansion worlds are like satellite worlds that orbit around a central capital world, which is Jerusalem. And there's one of these systems for every local system in a galaxy, and there's several dozen, couple hundred systems like this in our galaxy, in many, many galaxies. But it's just to paint this picture that there is an infrastructure to the afterlife. It's not just a magical accident that you would wake up after you die. You are deliberately preserved. And this kind of touches on what Bob Lazar was talking about, our bodies having containers, which he didn't really understand. He just kind of heard that reference, and it sounds a little spooky, but you could view it in kind of a more positive light, that we are containers for souls. These bodies are just vehicles, and this is a temporary life that we're living here.
Yeah, and the important thing to remember about this council of 4 and 20, they're ex-Earth beings. So, like we said, we keep saying this word Jerusalem. For all intents or just from my personal point of view, and from the Keys of Enoch, it says that this Jerusalem planet is a headquarters sphere, could be in Orion's belt. So after you die, you wake up on another planet with other people. Oh shit, what's up, guys? And you keep advancing your cosmic career. One of these high councils, the Council of 4 and 20 that John saw in Revelation that we just went over, those councils are made up of ex-humans. So when you die, if you do enough work on Earth, you can be admitted to one of these councils, and you could actually call the shots up in the stars. Be a boss, be a shot caller up there, be a head honcho, be a capo. You can do all that shit up there, but you have to do it for the benevolent reason. So just another example of councils, and this Reddit whistleblower keeps referring to a council. So if you guys want to pick up on the Reddit reading,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's right after Revisit Later.
Oh, I want to finish out
hit him. Yeah, hit him.
24. So I'm not going to read all these, but it basically does list a bunch of names of ex-Urantia mortals.
Yeah, let's go deep, baby. Fuck
we got a series of men and women here that are actually on this council, including who we know as Adam and Eve, who are actually celestial beings who incarnated with special biologic bodies created for them to actually like influence Earth and create a civilization. In fact, something Ray says in her post is that humans in a post-scarcity society actually thrive in a different way. And there's a whole experiment that was done by the council to set this up. Now, here's the thing, the Adam and Eve mission, we have a bunch of videos on this. We just released a video called The Anunnaki Verse, Atomic Superhuman ETs. Please check that video out as well, because it deep dives into this subject. Adam and Eve were supposed to create a post-scarcity society, a civilization to last the ages, right? But again, because we were in a rebellion sector, there was a lot of infighting, including the previous Anunnaki mission, which was originally good, but then sort of turned bad. And so when Adam and Eve sort of arrived on the planet, they tried to, take it back, but they also, failed in their agreed upon mission. But now being said, they are serving on this celestial council, alongside some other baddies. We got Enoch, the first of the mortals in Urantia to fuse with the thought adjuster, the divine inner spark, right? The higher self.
Yeah. And we know from Enoch from the Bible, very cryptic one-liner, two-liner, says Enoch lived for 365 years, then was no more, for he walked with God. And that's it. And you're just like, wait, what the heck is that? And then you get no more information about him. That's what happened to him. He ascended in a chariot of fire and went on to the Council of 4 and 20. He
was a hard-hitting mortal here in his life, here in the flesh. He accomplished a lot, so he gained access. He earned that seat.
Yeah, we also have one of the ultra-terrestrials who gained quite the position during their service here on Earth, known as 123 the First.
Shout out to 123 the First, baby.
So,
some people know him as Jin.
Oh yeah, that's Yeah, good connection.
interdimensionals, demons, but demons were the ones that rebelled. They were actually good angels, ultra terrestrials, beings that are from Earth, but they're non-human. They're kind of like invisible, and they can earn a spot on the council too because they're from Earth too.
It could be where a lot of the lore comes from in different mythologies about like forest spirits and fairies
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Show. Okay,
We also got John the
last quote.
Baptist, Moses, Elijah, all heavy hit
Onomatolanton.
names. Yeah, Onomatolanton, everybody knows them. Orshunta, Singlanton, Phanton. You got to read the Urantia book to understand who these beings are, but if you work hard, you can be on the council. So thank you for listening. If you guys are here again, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, if you like what you're hearing, you can buy us a beer. Drop a super chat in there. Throw us a couple bucks. And if you do that, obviously you can ask a direct question and we'll try to address it as well as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're going way deeper on the councils than even we kind of expected. We're like
It's
doing
what the
our
people
own
want.
Reddit
We
post,
got
right?
this is only chapter 1 right now. We still got
Right.
2 more chapters.
We're like a couple paragraphs into Ray, and we're like, hold up, Ray, you're missing some critical details. Here's the intel drop.
Yeah. Well, we need the people to be able to perceive this post through the correct data lens. So we've got to put it all on the table.
That's what we do here. That's why we are Planetary HQ, the home for all your celestial broadcast. So this next celestial broadcast is coming from the Law of One, aka Ra. Salute to Ra,
which sounds a lot like Rhea.
Oh, snap. Okay.
Action.
Interesting. So this Law of One book was a channeled book, right? And it, Ra, you say, why does Ra, okay, that's the Egyptian god of the sun. Not exactly. Ra says that they are actually a civilization that grew up on Venus like millions of years ago, right? They say that their civilization no longer exists in the third dimension on Venus. However, there is still life there in what you call other dimensions or other spectrums. But that being said, Ra they were actually a 3D alien species on Venus, and they say that they've since sort of ascended to new states of life. They actually are on that council level, and so they have interacted with Earth before, including during the Egyptian age, which they taught about the sort of oneness of the universe. That's why the book is called The Law of One, and it's why partly the rich history of Egyptian knowledge of the cosmos and advanced technologies, because they actually were in contact with extraterrestrial beings, including this Ra being. So this is a really great transcript of cosmic philosophy that is rare to get on planet Earth, because we're in a data vacuum due to the planetary quarantine. And here is Ra explaining another form of star council, right? So the questioner says, I got questions. Tell me about the council. What do they do? The members of the council are representatives from the Confederation and from those vibratory levels of your inner planes bearing responsibility for your third density. The names are not important. There are no names. Your mind-body-spirit complexes request names, and so in many cases, they basically give us names like on the spot. However, the name concept is not part of the council. If you request names, we're going to try and give you them, but not everyone chooses names, right? So in number, the council that sits in constant sessions, though varying in its members and means of balancing, which takes place, what you would call irregularly, is 9. That is the session council. So this is the council of 9. To back up this council, there are 24 entities which offer their services as requested. These entities faithfully watch and have been called the Guardians.
Interesting.
Yeah, who would have known?
Yeah, I think
2
it's another
contact
thing.
cases lining up, man.
Yeah, it says here, from those vibratory levels of your inner planes bearing responsibility for your third density. So there are some beings which bear responsibility for our reality. That kind of seems to allude to this council we've been talking about.
Yeah, checks out. Checks the F out, dog.
So that's all I'm going to cover from the Law of One for now. Now that Council of Nine, they call like interdimensional. They even give this octave system of how to understand densities, is what they call it. And they kind of say that Council of Nine is like higher level interdimensional beings, and then lower star councils of physical ETs will actually come to the Council of Nine and be like, yo, you're responsible for the Earth sector. Can we do X, Y, and Z? And then they get permission in certain cases. The Law of One also does talk about some negative extraterrestrial self-oriented self-service beings coming from certain Orion sectors, which we attribute to that Lucifer rebellion sort of cascading effect, right, in the Orion Pleiades sector, where we might wake up after we die. And yeah, so that's sort of another side tangent that we won't get too into. So I think we're ready to get back into the text. Now that you know what's going on with these councils, let's do this thing. Let's keep reading.
Yeah. I can take over if you like.
Do it.
Yeah, there's a very enticing story about the first two human beings. Oh, I appreciate that, Shauna. Thank you for the $5. Really appreciate that. You supporting the cause for Planetary HQ?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, you got any specific questions? Shoot them out, Shauna. We got you. So if you want to keep reading Magma, go for it. But like I said, there's a really interesting story in the Urantia book that talks about the first two human beings and how the council recognized them. It's like one of the best stories ever made, like an epic, like a legendary tale. But we're not going to go over it now, unfortunately. Just some hot Easter eggs within the text.
All
Don't
right,
forget to hit that subscribe button.
Please do. Back to the whistleblower on Reddit. They say, standard procedure for them when a world looks promising is pretty boring from their point of view. They send automated probes. Not big crude ships like you see in sci-fi movies, just small, tough, very smart machines. Those probes come in, mostly target the oceans, and set up self-replicating facilities on the seafloor. Those facilities use local materials to build more facilities, more probes. Craft that can operate underwater, in the air, in near space, and eventually avatars that can interact with whatever life evolves. These biological, or rather biomechanical avatars are what some people who claim to have been abducted have likely experienced. Though they do have what we would call ASI, these beings are not gods. They are technology, and they aren't perfect. They make mistakes, glitch out, etc. What is that ASI? Is that submersible?
Good
Do you know
question.
what
What is
the
now.
acronym is?
Artificial
ASI.
superintelligence
Okay,
is
thank
what
you.
this is what
So it's
AI
like
is saying. Like
AGI.
this is likely pointing to, and that does make
That
sense
is
in the
what.
context of these automated probes.
That
They
is what AI would say.
they have yeah, right. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know.
So the reason they base all of that underwater, for a simple reason. Again, I kind of like the awkward typography here because it shows it was just a person probably typing this up real fast. The bottom of an ocean does not care about ice ages, political empires, climate swings, or wars. Temperatures and pressures change slowly over what long periods of time. It's a fairly stable environment, and for much of human history has been mostly inaccessible. Speaking of time, we Earth humans tend to think in terms of nothing longer than the current human lifespan. And when pondering non-human intelligence, we like to think in terms of deep space, distance, and light years, but we seldom consider the lifespan and concept of time for a post-biological species could be quite different than ours. Only our most astute thinkers in the realms of geology, paleontology, and cosmology think in terms of millions or billions of years. Geologic epochs, cosmological history. That is child's play for the Council, which has a different concept of time, more concerned with deep time, millions of years at a stretch.
Deep time.
As such, their infrastructure is designed for that. So yes, a lot of the TMOs, transmedium objects, and impossible accelerations you have heard about are just their hardware doing its job. Maintenance, observation, sampling, nothing heroic. The warp bubble, Alcubierre effect, was probably mastered by them before our solar system even existed. It's old tech for them, kind of like the wheel is for us. Also, no, we are not the center of anyone's universe. There are about 1 billion planets in our galaxy that are more or less like Earth. Some just have microbes, some have more complex life. A smaller subset of those have or once had civilizations. We are just one more entry, a fairly recent one in cosmological terms, in a very large survey. Once early humans started doing interesting things, we moved from planet with life to planet with potential. They have watched this same story unfold in slightly different ways around 1,000 times from what I understand. Chemistry leads to biology, biology creates technology. Tool use, language, agriculture, cities, industry, energy, space travel. Somewhere in there, you always hit the same fork. Either the species figures out how not to blow itself to pieces with the energy densities it increasingly has access to, such as nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, antimatter, and more exotic matter energy, or it wipes itself out.
That is
Our sit-
true. One thing that I did want to pause real quick just to say, talking about how they like to hide underwater for the simple reason that it's easy to hide from the humans and that we don't go down
yeah,
there very often. I did put a picture in the chat. It reminds me a lot of the other whistleblower, the 4chan whistleblower. The guy who just came out, a couple years ago. Yep. 2023, April.
Undersea
I have
bases
intimate
guy.
knowledge. Yep. I have intimate knowledge of what the U.S. currently knows about UFO minus the last 2 years. UFOs are primarily unmanned drones. UFOs are built to spec each time they are deployed. UFOs are created by a mobile construction facility that hides in the ocean. Construction facility destroys anything that comes close to it and will disappear for days when approached aggressively. U.S. believes the facility has been active on Earth for at least 100 years or much longer. So, just covering the similar points, another 4chan whistleblower a couple of years ago, and it's lining up with what Rhea is saying here. So, Planetary HQ making them deep connections, deep
I'm glad
time.
you saved that. I'm glad you saved that. 2023, that was a few years ago. Easy to forget about, but you're keeping your receipts.
Is there? Keep it cruising.
All right. So Rhea continues. Our situation worried them. We were a little paradox, extremely good at cooperation and also extremely good at organized violence. Our aggression stood out. Cooperation plus violence isn't unique, but we're very, very good at both. And once you get to things like nuclear power, that combo tends to end very badly. They'd seen plenty of variations of that play out over the last few billion years. About 10,000 years ago, our trajectory towards that became our trajectory towards that became clear, and there was a major argument inside the council about what, if anything, to do with us. One side said the odds favored self-destruction once we discovered and weaponized atomic-level technologies. The other side argued we were worth saving, or at least worth understanding better. The compromise was an experiment, one which has ramifications as to why all of this has been hidden for so long. Roughly 65,000 humans were removed from Earth and relocated to what is basically a reserve on a planet around the star you know as 82 Eridani. Internally, we call those people Arids.
Damn, Arids.
Those Arids. That star is in our catalogs if you feel like looking it up, but the details of the target planet are not public for obvious reasons. It's interesting. If we have time later, I do have a clip from Linda Moulton Howe's podcast from February 5th. The episode was about a remote viewer, but she answers some questions at the end, and she actually talks about a story. I'm not exactly sure where she got it, some guy she knew, but apparently the Mayans were taken up by the Greys to another world, and that explained their sudden disappearance. Kind of an interesting connection there that could possibly tie in.
I mean, do you have the clip pulled up or no?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can play it here.
Yeah, if you have a little clip. I don't want to watch the full interview, but let's check it out.
Yeah, the full thing is like...
Who's she interviewing?
She was interviewing a remote viewer. Lynn Buchanan
Oh, Lynn
on.
Buchanan. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like one of the OGs. I think he worked for the CIA for part of their remote
Oh,
viewing programs. Yeah.
okay. It was a very interesting episode. He's got a lot of wild stuff to say. He's talking about the future of 2050, but I'll play this little segment here.
How about one more?
This comes from a viewer who would love to know what's your opinion on the Mayans being moved off planet. What happened to them?
It was one of the more interesting discussions that I ever had with a government whistleblower. This was a person in Washington, D.C. It goes back to the late 1980s. I remember very specifically, I was working on a documentary for PBS about chemistry. And in this discussion, this person sought me out because they knew about my documentary, A Strange Harvest. And in this incredible discussion, it started with what could be the reason for bloodless, trackless animal mutilations. I'm asking in the frustration of it happens. I had learned by then that the excisions showed evidence of high heat. I had been working with Dr. Altschuler. We were doing the kind of pathology that would hold up in a court of law. We knew that hearts could be removed in the animals without any surgery in the chest or the ribs, that the pericardium could be left in the chest without a cut. We knew that that had to be in the range of molecular surgery, all of that. And as I was laying out my questions and frustrations about why would extraterrestrial biological entities come to this planet or be based on this planet and go to the surface life, cattle, horses, goats, sheep, pigs, chicken, a marmot, foxes, rabbits, these have all been found bloodlessly mutilated, and cats, the half-cat syndrome. Why would they do that and leave the bodies to be found that shocks and repulses humans? And this provoked this insight into the creation of the Mayans. I'll give you the short version. He said from his understanding, it was the Greys. Now, when we say Greys today, you really have to attach the words, the menagerie of artificial intelligence in doll-like figures, 2 feet tall, 2.5 feet tall, 3 feet tall, 3.5 feet tall. When you start getting up to 4 to 5, you may be getting into organic species, probably for sure when you get up to the 7-foot Greys. They work in this huge complex. And he said they have been mixing and matching genes and experimenting on this planet for a long time. And they like to do experiments where they can control, let's say, and this was what this person said, they like to do an experiment and put it on an island or on a peninsula or high in a mountain, places where there wouldn't be a mix of whatever they made. And that one of those was in Bhutan, in the Himalayas. In Bhutan, this man said that he had worked on a project and knew that the Greys 2,000 years ago had mixed and matched genes in Bhutan specifically to harvest and put in the Yucatan Peninsula, in what we think of today as Central America. And that what flourished from that Bhutanese genetic manipulation was the Mayans. And he said, you have read enough to know that they had such precise information about the orbit of Venus. They were almost obsessed with math. He said that's the influence of the Greys on their experiment, the Mayans as an experiment. And I said, if the Mayans were a genetic experiment of the Greys, would that explain, I mean, are you, because we had started out in animal mutilations, are you suggesting that there is a tie between the harvesting of material from the animals and that the Mayans would have these ball games and the victor is the winner would have his heart cut out while his heart was beating and hold it up to the gods? Is there some connection? And he said, I understand the point that you are making. And he said, and I can't give you a precise answer, but we do know that the Mayans were involved with what we would consider to be a lot of violence in their sports, but we don't know what it was that the Greys specifically were doing a hybrid in this planet or genetic manipulation. And he said, but I can tell you this, it wasn't harvest problems.
Magma, do you have any more
drought.
volume to give to viewers?
That in 850 AD,
Unfortunately, that's as loud as it gets,
the
Okay.
Greys
I
sent
believe.
a mission. And they took the
Yeah.
vast majority of that entire Mayan experiment from the Yucatan. And Linda, as far as I know, they occupy a planet, an entire planet. The Greys took their Mayan experiment from the Bhutan and put it on a planet. And he said, I don't know if someday humanity will be shown images, but he said, there is a Mayan planet out there in the Milky Way galaxy, and the Greys put it there.
I'll stop it
Ooh,
there.
Yeah.
That one stood out in my memory as extremely interesting because the Mayans did kind of disappear without a trace. I mean, obviously, bodies have been found and stuff, but the vast majority of the civilization is still up for debate. What actually happened to them? Was it famine, geological changes, and changes in the ecosystem and the climate that caused them to starve out? Was it geopolitical? Was it a famine or an infection or something? No one actually knows. That's your answer. They were zapped away by the Greys, living on another world.
I mean, it does line up. That's hot. And it's kind of cheating. Anytime you put Linda Moulton Howe, I'm going to listen to it because I love Linda Moulton Howe. I grew up on her. I loved her. And like MU likes to say, Linda Moulton, wow, if you've seen her when she was younger. But she's awesome. She's an OG in the game. And I've heard that angle, but I didn't know that came from Lynn Buchanan, the famous CIA remote viewer. So it kind of lends a little bit more credibility to it. It makes my mind think of, now reading this Reddit UFO post, we don't know exactly when they took the human beings on. It said 10,000 years ago, the trajectory became clear and the council started theorizing on what to do. But it doesn't give us an exact date on what year humans they took from. So the Mayans weren't that long ago. So I'm guessing, like, how long ago do you think this sample was taken from Earth? 5,000 years ago?
Maybe, because apparently
earlier than that.
I got a Mayan civilization timeline pulled up. Apparently, there was the Archaic period from 8,000 BC to 2,000 BC, then Pre-Classic 2000 BC to 250 AD, Classic 250 to 950.
Okay, so that's not that far ago. It's only 2,000 years ago or so.
But think of it in terms like this. Remember, the council projects they watch at billion-year timescales on planets. It says 10,000 years ago, then this is what D-Bait kind of just pointed out. 10,000 years ago, they kind of started premising this idea. They were like, okay, trajectory is going this way. If we want to do something, we should do it now because they're about to get to technology level civilization. So they could have waited 8,000 years or 9,000 years and then actually removed the Mayans, 65,000 of them. So it's still plausible, I guess, within this storyline because again, this celestial council is operating on large timescales. And plus, if they predicted 10,000 years ago that we might destroy ourselves with atomic technologies, even at the Mayan age, we still weren't using those technologies. So they had all that
Yeah, we weren't
time
even
to wait.
close. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, if they started 8,000 BC plus 2080, that is 10,000 years ago. So it could have been kind of right at the outset. They took a sample of the population and then set them off. I don't know. That doesn't really explain them, the whole civilization going missing in the later eras, but it kind of lines up.
No, and I also think in the cryptic Caligastia papers, he talks something about that, like taking the entire Mayan civilization off planet
What?
or something.
No way.
Yeah.
And he said he like tried to send them all at once to the mansion worlds, and the higher celestials got mad at him for doing that.
Oh, so what if
Yeah.
they were like, no, you can't do that, but they still took them somewhere else? They were like, they're not coming to the mansion worlds, but you can send them over there. So you can put them on another planet.
That could make sense. You got to reread it. They might have even, I don't know. I don't want to say they implied that, but something happened. But yeah, that's kind of a cool connection right there. Just taking the lens of the post in my mind, I think the council would want the 65,000 humans. They'd want to get them from a sample of civilization that has already acquired weapons, technological weapons, right? Because you'd want to see if those beings with the
Oh,
what's that called when your DNA adjusts due to environmental pressure?
Epigenetics.
Epigenetics. Yep.
yeah.
So they'd want the beings to have the epigenetical framework from a civilization that already has
Right.
these mechanical weapons and then place them on the planet. I don't think they're going to place ancient humans before. Like that wouldn't make sense.
I see.
Yeah, and although I know the Mayans were pretty docile compared to the Aztecs, which they had do a lot of their bidding, they probably could be considered a pretty violent species from a cosmological perspective. And they would make a good kind of control group too because they had no influence. Whereas everyone on the other side of the world, around the Middle East and the Mediterranean and Asia, had constant contact and trading. The Mayans were kind of isolated over here on the other side of the world.
Some hot takes. And now that we're talking about it, I guess here's one quote from the Urantia book again. It says, while there is this dematerializing technique for preparing the atoms for transit to Jerusalem and to other evolutionary worlds, there is no equivalent method for taking them away from such worlds unless the entire planet is to be emptied, in which the emergency installation of the dematerialization technique is made for the entire salvable population. If some physical catastrophe should doom the planetary residents of an evolving race, the Melchizedeks and the life carriers, the council, would install the technique of dematerialization for all the survivors, and by seraphic transport, these beings would be carried away to the new world prepared for their continuing existence. The evolution of a human race, once initiated on a world of space, must proceed quite independently of the physical survival of that planet. But during the evolutionary ages, it is not otherwise intended that the planetary Adam and Eve should leave their world. So it's just a little quote that's supporting that the Celestials are able to do this. They can find other planets that are suitable and dematerialize populations to different planets. So this passage is specifically referring to if the planet goes to catastrophe mode, that they would save the entire planet, but we're talking about totally different circumstances. This passage just shows that they have the capability to do it, but under different circumstances, not emergency catastrophe, and they just want to see if this atomic race can make it on their own on a different planet. They have the ability to do it. So
Could we even speculate, just getting into crazy theoretical territory here, that the whistleblower here on Reddit is associating this group, what they call the council, as being one homogenous thing, but this could be a rebel faction of the council that could be perceived as a part of the celestial government. They have the technology, they're ancient, but they could be on a rebellious bend doing experiments and taking humans off the planet through other
Interesting.
means
You're talking about
rather than dematerialization.
this council's actually the rebels posing as good ones. A double
Maybe,
psyop from the cosmic
maybe
beings.
we love
That's
our double
wild.
psyop.
I like it. I do love the double psyop.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I do have another angle here on that concept of transporting beings like off planet. Now, I will say, the quote that you read from the Urantia book, is acknowledging maybe mostly like if there's a planetary emergency, the celestial beings will actually like teleport the planetary citizens and do it all in one go, but they have to do it all at one time and get everyone. However, that it doesn't. We can still get a ship to get 65K humans off the planet, right? So, but it is interesting to note that like the council will intervene if there is a planetary emergency level, which does come into play here later in the Reddit post, which talks about a potential incoming threat in 2027. So I guess the real question is, how will the council intervene? Will they teleport some people off the planet? I guess it depends on if we win the incoming alien war or not. But basically, the other thing I wanted to add here is that in the Law of One, we get the stories that Mars had a previous civilization, but they became warring and they essentially vaporized the planet, including like lighting up their entire atmosphere at once, which is part of the reason that I think everything looks like a desert is what they claim. Among the just many millions of years going by since life was there. But they blew a bunch of shit up using atomic weapons. They were one of the examples where the council looks out for. Now, it says that they basically did destroy their planet, but the Law of One goes on to say that the guardian beings, the celestials from the council, they actually gathered up the surviving energy body consciousness from those beings that died, and they translocated them to Earth and gave them specialized what it calls second density bodies, which don't have the same complexity as humans, which are considered third density bodies. But they still were they basically like made special bodies and incarnated these souls into there so that they could continue their evolution here on Earth, right? Because the purpose of planets on the celestial level is to evolve ascending souls that can actually survive into the afterlife. But there is a prerequisite experience that you are supposed to have as a mortal before you get to the afterlife. And if that gets ended prematurely, in the case of Mars, they were kind of like, well, we can't just send them to the afterlife because they really need to work some things out in the second density instead of like the fourth, fifth density afterlife dimension, right? So that's just another interesting angle of a planet that potentially destroyed themselves with atomic weapons. And so you could call it a case study for the Earth intelligence agencies and, academia.
And thus they become Sasquatch. Sasquatch is a UFO. Check out our Sasquatch episode from, I believe it was earlier this year.
Right. Yeah, they do say that Sasquatch is partly some of these Mars beings. I left that part out
I love it.
not to sound too kooky. But we said it.
We've
We said
already
it,
went-
everyone. Sasquatch is the former Mars beings that were given special bodies for Earth.
We've already went too deep. There's no going back.
So,
Rhea is a Sasquatch.
right. Are we
Alright,
yeah,
let's
I
keep
think we
reading.
continue reading.
Yeah. The Arids were started in a kind of controlled paradise. Their world has large dispenser systems that can produce whatever basic material needs they have: food, clothing, tools, building materials, entire structures for habitation. Think Star Trek replicators scaled up and wired into the environment. Star Trek. In that setup, nobody starves, nobody is homeless. In the way we understand it, nobody spends their life chasing money just to meet needs. This was just the Arids' natural reality. The point from the Council's view was to remove material scarcity from the equation and see what humans do and achieve when they are not spending most of their energy bashing each other over the head over resources. Meanwhile, the rest of us stayed here on the control planet, dealing with scarcity, ownership, money, hoarding, and the rise of socio-political systems based on scarcity. All of the things that define Earth civilization.
Anunnaki
The-
Babylonian money magic, anyone? The
yeah,
banking
right?
system has been ruled by the Illuminati since the age of the
Yes.
Anunnaki, anyone? Raise your
Yep,
hand
yep,
and
yep.
give a super chat if you agree.
Preach it, brother.
Got two of them.
Hell yeah. There we go. The result, according to what we were briefed, is that the Arids are now around 5,000 years ahead of us technologically, averaged out. Same species, same basic biology, same starting point, completely different trajectory because of conditions, nature versus nurture on a cosmic scale. For most of their history, they Arids thought they were native to that world. They only found out the truth roughly a century ago in our time. They learned that they were uplifted, that their ancestors were taken from Earth, that they have cousins here. Once they knew that, some of them started coming back to visit the original branch. This is where their history intersects some of the UFO stories you know. The aliens that look almost exactly human are just that, human. They are not hybrids, not clones, not secretly angels or demons. They are Arids, born around another star, showing up here after being given a 10,000-year head start. They have, in some cases, met with leaders of certain countries and at least 2 UN Secretary Generals, both deceased. Now we get to why this has been buried for 80 years.
Okay, well, we'll pause there for a second just to introduce the Antarctic Nazi theory that everybody knows that we love to talk about. I mean, we're not the only people. This has been talked about since even the 1940s. From the intel agencies, they were talking about this because they were trying to find these Antarctic Nazis. Pretty much World War II ended, people, and we found some secret plans that the Nazis had, that they built massive underground, under ice bases under Antarctica. And they had a continuation of government plan, a COG plan. So if anything happens, they lose the war, they will transfer all the top brass, the leaders of the Nazi regime, via U-boats, huge U-boats that can carry so much material, huge submarines. They would follow the South American coastline and go under their Antarctic base. During this, when they lost World War II, we actually found a couple of U-boats that got damaged during the traversing this mission, and they had to resurface, and they landed in Argentina. Right after World War II, we sent an entire carrier task force under Operation High Jump to go. So all of those boats that were around Europe during World War II, when we beat them, we sent them those boats directly to Antarctica for some reason. Why? It was a top secret classified mission, but we figured out the real mission was to root out any Nazis that were in Antarctica. So we were taking this serious. Admiral Byrd was in charge of this mission. It's supposed to be like a 6-month mission, but they came back in like 2.5, 3 months with a lot of aircraft damage, personnel injured or killed. And he stopped to refuel in Argentina because that was the path to get back from Antarctica. And he talked to the local newspaper and said he was scared shitless. And he said, the next war, we're going to battle an enemy that can travel from North Pole to South Pole in a matter of seconds. This is from our own Admiral Byrd, decorated admiral. He was working for our military, and this is a secret mission after World War II to root out Nazis. And supposedly these Nazis developed anti-grav technology. That's the reason why we can't go over Antarctica at all anymore. And it gets even deeper, but we're not going to go into that conspiracy side. For the most part, if you look at Jason Giorgiani, who's been doing the rounds on the Jesse Michaels podcasts and Ashton Forbes podcasts, if you look at the original Betty and Barney Hill testimony, the interracial couple of Vermont that got abducted in the 60s, and they gave us one of our first alien abduction history records. A lot of people say these Nordics look exactly like humans. They look like us, blonde hair and blue eyes. There is another UFO guy who got abducted by him, and he noticed they were speaking in High Dutch. High Dutch was what the SS spoke in. It wasn't like normal German. It was an ancient High Dutch. So when Betty and Barney Hill got abducted, if you listen to their original hypnotic regression, they asked Barney, what do you see? Who's around you? And he goes, oh, he blonde hair, blue eyes. He looks like a Nazi. He is a Nazi. And then they go, huh? Really? What's he wearing? And he goes, a Nazi uniform. It's a German Nazi. And he's recalling the operators that are in the craft. Now, a lot like Jason Giorgiani, I love him. He's awesome. He goes so deep into these subjects. He's talking about how these underground Nazis don't want to reveal themselves because the public wouldn't be able to handle that. What do you mean Nazis stayed alive and have anti-grav and are more advanced and are running the planet? So it's easier for them to lie. So they still make contact with us and they say, we're Pleiadians from a different star system, when they're really just Nazis or a breakaway civilization. Or they might even be saying, we're the Erids from Eridani. Anything to cover the fact that they're an offshoot of Nazis. And again, I mean, that was a long time ago. So this would be third, fourth, fifth generation. You don't get to pick where you're born to, you know? I luckily got born in the United States. If you just randomly got born into that underground bunker, you can't really like call these beings Nazis, you know, because their great grandparents were Nazis. Now they're just like underground Germans that have like secret technology. But so that's the underground Antarctic angle, and it's something to be aware of when reading this, because if that is the case, because remember, we took all the Nazi scientists and we made them in charge of our NASA space program. These are the guys that are intimately entrenched with our aerospace intelligence agencies from the inception of them in the 1940s. We wholeheartedly subsumed the Nazi intel agencies and made them part of the CIA, wiped their records. So they are deep in the American government. The Nazis,
paperclip.
they just took new names and came over to America. We gave them a free ride. If they did develop this technology and are in Antarctica, that would be a big problem for the world. You couldn't just come out and say that. So you would probably think of a bunch of cover stories such as the Eridanis or the Pleiadians or the Nordics. So I just want people to be aware.
So
if
there's
this
another
is true information. There could be another angle to be aware
there's
of.
another angle that there are no Erids. They're actually Antarctic Nazis.
Yes,
There are
and
no
that's why they
Pleiadians.
look like us. There are no Pleiadians. Yeah.
Interesting. Billy Meyer, he was one of the original contacts. That's where you know, the X-Files poster, the famous flying saucer image.
Funny,
Those
Jason
images,
Giorgiani says Billy Meyer. There's documentation that he worked for the German CIA. Yeah,
what? And
yeah.
that was a psyop to say, like,
And that
hey,
was yeah.
they're
So
from
they
another
contacted him
world.
because he was like a clean contact to contact.
Wow. Okay. Because yeah, he reported the being that stepped out was like a beautiful woman with blonde hair and
Yep.
Nordic looking, and that she described she was from the Pleiades. Huh.
Likely story.
Okay.
It says that's like supposedly when Roswell crashed, that was a Nazi craft too. And that's why we got night vision, fiber optics, Velcro, and the integrated circuit. And Jason Giorgiani was like, those aren't space materials. Those are all the advancements that the Nazis were working on at the end of World War II. You know, we found them in their down craft later. So it's more of a angle that we didn't get the chips and the fiber optic and the night vision and the Velcro from the aliens. We got it from down Nazi crafts. And that's what they were working on at the end of World War II. So it just kind of lines up. But some hot takes right there. Let's keep plowing ahead.
So what?
Alright.
I'm assuming
You're muted, Tate.
I'm assuming you basically revealed that this is a Nazi breakaway civilization psyop. Oh,
Yes.
we're just the Arids people who were taken 10,000 years ago. We're not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We have blonde hair because it's the style right now.
So as you're reading this whistleblower's testimony, just keep in the back of your mind, it could be a psyop. We can't rule that out. Just keep all the possibilities in your mind. That way, whatever happens in a few years, we can look back at this and be like, all right, that's what happened.
Called it. Yeah.
So continuing on, the whistleblower Rhea writes, You have to think like a senior U.S. official in the 1940s and 1950s. World War II has just ended, the Cold War is starting, everything is viewed through capitalism versus communism. Then someone puts a briefing in front of you that says, in essence, there is a group of humans living on another world who have no money, no private ownership in the way we structure it. Automatic systems that meet their basic needs. And in that environment, they advanced thousands of years faster than we have. The men who built what we now call the Legacy program in the US that sounded less like interesting anthropological data and more like a walking, talking advertisement for space communism. It looked like proof that communism works better than the system they were trying to defend. That and the ramifications of what could happen if that ever got out terrified them more than the existence of aliens did. Though, to be fair, they plenty had their worldview rocked by the latter, too. I love
See, now
that.
this isn't a new angle in the UFO sphere either.
Right.
Like
Really?
MU talks a lot about this, like the
Because
early
the Space
contact cases where
Brothers,
they're
the
communists.
things that they said to the
Hmm.
humans sounded kind of like communism. And
Yes,
they even
yes.
hypothesized that like maybe some of those were like Russian plants trying to like get
Mm-mm.
communism into the US through the UFO circles.
Oh, yeah.
Or you could say not maybe they're not fake Nazi Nordics who are actually like just trying to take control of a society by implanting ideas like that during that critical time where that's the tension. It is funny
You're
though,
right,
but
because the Nazis disliked Russia and us, so they'd still employ
yeah.
those disinformation. They did want US to crumble by injecting communism.
That I would say, that being said, I do realize that like whenever we talk about utopia, we inevitably get to like somewhat of a communism idea where we're all sharing like the resources that are managed by like technological systems that balance with nature and don't overtake, and we are able to support the population and have a high standard of living. Like when you get there, it almost does sound like a type of communism, but it's like without the, I guess, lower human power distortions that sort of mess it all up. And so like I'm not going to totally write it off because I realize like any type of utopia feels like some version of that, like shared, where we all share the same resources. So you could almost always find a way to like relate it to communism, but it feels like a bit of a loose thread. Um,
You
yeah.
know, this does sound a lot like something Joe Rogan talks about a lot. He had someone on, I believe it was either Hal Puthoff or Jacques Vallée, I can't remember, but this guy went through an actual like government funded program to try to figure out what would be the economic implications of full disclosure. And they had pros and cons. They eventually ruled it would be economically devastating if full disclosure happened. And you got to think, what does that have to do with the economy? How would that even affect the economy? That's the one thing I think that could affect the economy, because communism always fails because people, like the Russian Revolution, they overthrew their government um, to install this new system haphazardly, and there was really no safety net to fall back on. It was spread too thin, and it didn't work. And I think revolutionary communism could never work. Um, where we're at currently, capitalism is what works in our stage of evolution. Someday in the 23rd century, when we have Starfleet and material beams and all that,
And brother,
yeah, maybe something like that would naturally evolve where we live in an age of abundance. We do have a kind of utopia, but it wouldn't be really a state-run communism the way we perceive it nowadays. And so, possibly, if full disclosure happened, it could cause revolutions, people uprising, overthrowing the system, and we would have total societal collapse.
yeah, and you can join Magma's lecture on the problems of socialism next Wednesday at 8 o'clock on the YouTube channel. No, but seriously, yeah, you're right. Pretty much it doesn't work because if you have humans trying to run at the very top, like we control who gets the right proportions, but everybody gets the right proportions, it starts fucking up because the leaderships get access to the higher proportions and they start living like the aristocrats. But it works in Starfleet and with the Eridani because it's a literal machine that just can create anything. So you're taking away that leadership strata of humans who control the portions. Now it's truly unlimited portions, and you can just walk up to the machine and get it yourself. that type of socialism would work. It would make sense just because you can get whatever you want from the machine. Now there's no more fighting over resources. I think our government's just afraid of the fat capitalist pigs losing all the power. So let's keep it moving, I guess. But I've heard that angle for a long time. Space commies. Oh, and then the CIA realized that communism and socialism prevails in space, and this freaked them the fuck out. So
Right.
Interesting.
There's also an element of like on this arid society, the humans don't have any like control over managing that original machine that gave them free access to anything. The thing is that in our current society, if we were to just try and switch, humans are still managing the machine that gives out free shit. And so they're like, wait, we can't give out free stuff to them because they're going to ask for free weapons. Or like they're going to
Yeah,
do this.
right.
We can't give out free energy because
Iraq is not allowed
the transition
to have
of world
access to the
power.
machine.
Right. It's like it gets so like complicated. But maybe this was easier to implement with only 65,000 people who were more primitive and didn't
Yeah.
have a full technological understanding of how it all worked. They just kind of like, okay, it gives us stuff. I guess we'll just build a society. I don't know. Like, did
All
they
right.
teach the people anything about like spirituality or cosmic laws? Like,
I
was it
don't
really
know.
that simple? I'm sure if that's real, there's a lot more to it than just putting them on a planet with a little
No,
replicator
they probably had a
box.
planetary prince and shit. They probably had like a full staff.
Think so?
Yeah, I wonder.
Hmm. All right. So powering forward.
Or maybe not, but yeah, keep going.
So the core of the cover-up has never just been aliens or even their technologies. It has been the systemic implications, the idea that scarcity and ownership are not hard-coded into reality, that they are one possible way to run a society, and maybe not the optimal one. That was seen as an existential political threat in the 1940s and 1950s, and some of the people who grew up in that mindset are still steering parts of the program today. Now add in the famous crash retrieval incidents, Roswell 47, Kecksburg 65, a handful of other retrievals around the US and around the world. What we were told is that most of those were not accidents, they were tests and gift. The Council, with arid input, allowed certain craft and systems to fall into human hands in a controlled way. Enough intact technology that a very motivated and capable society could learn from it, not enough that it would instantly rewrite everything. In fact, the Kecksburg landing, it wasn't called a crash internally, was a direct result of a meeting and gift agreement made at Holloman Air Force Base the year prior. The idea was to see who did what with it. Who could figure it out, who kept it secret, who tried to share, who tried to weaponize it, who panicked. Based on those results, the plan was to pick one primary human partner to act as the main interface for full council contact and to begin a managed process of reunifying Earth humans with the Arids and introducing us to the wider community. You can argue whether that is a good way to do it. I'm just telling you that is the framework I saw laid out. In the 1980s through the 90s, during a brief period when the Cold War ended, there was a push to finally disclose much of this. This was initially proposed at meeting between the US President Ronald Reagan and then Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev at a summit in Reykjavik, Iceland in 1986. Also discussed was getting rid of nuclear weapons, as had been urged by the Council. In the end, it was decided to wait. There were two more U.S. pushes for disclosure between then and the 2017 New York Times article. One during the Clinton administration, and another during the transition between the Obama and the first Trump presidency. Now for the part that put a clock on all of this stuff you've been hearing about 2027, etc. About 3 years ago, a species that is hostile to the Council found out about the Earth Project. They are not part of the collective. They resent the way the Council handles in younger civilizations, as they themselves felt victimized by the Council. They also resent the credit the Council gets for successful cases. I've heard them described as the jealous neighbors who would rather break your toys than watch you win. Yes, we sometimes joke about this stuff because, again, it's the only way to stay sane with this everyday knowledge and integrate it into your civilian life of Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas shopping, taking the kids to soccer practice, etc. Just as an aside, ever consider how two of the biggest holidays of the year involve gluttony, Thanksgiving, and overconsumption, Black Friday, When you have the knowledge many have within the program, stuff like that is taken for granted. Seems really weird and a symptom of the now forced scarcity of our current system. Anyway, back to the aliens. The hostile group I mentioned decided to spoil the experiment. This species is ahead of us technologically, but far behind the Council. Though they also inhabit a relatively nearby star, cosmologically speaking, their travel is slower, less elegant, and has to take place in stages. Think of it as space island hopping, which is why the lead time is so long. You probably want to know what they look like. Physically, based on the descriptions we saw, they're about 5 feet tall, segmented bodies, multiple limbs, basically ant-like in form. Nothing subtle or humanoid about them. They launched an expedition toward Earth with the stated goal of making a mess. Cause chaos here, damage the experiment, and embarrass the Council by showing they cannot protect their own projects due to internal disagreements. Basically exploiting internal fissures, turning small cracks of understanding in the Council into canyons, thus destroying it. That's their hope, at least. The transit time means for us they are expected to arrive in roughly 2 years from now, the 2027 holiday present no one asked for. That news triggered a major debate within the Council. One group said, "The rules say non-interference. We watch and record what happens, even if it is ugly, and as we had done in the past." The other group said, "We effectively created this situation by tagging and monitoring this world. We have a moral obligation not to just watch a civilization we have been studying get smashed by somebody else's grudge." If the Council showed up in force, it would not be much of a fight. Their technology relative to the ant species is like a modern carrier group versus skilled archers on a sailboat. The whole thing would be over quickly, and it would also completely blow the point of letting a young species find its own way. It would also be a tremendous blow to the human ego, which the Council is well aware of. So they arrived at a compromise. No direct Council fleets defending Earth, no obvious intervention. Instead, they would quietly arm us. What they chose to give us are things they roughly call scalar phase weapons. Our vocabulary is not great here. They are not just high-power lasers, they interact with fields we do not fully understand or really have names for yet. Shift phases, dump huge amounts of energy from the vacuum into very specific volumes of space-time without a conventional bright beam or explosion. Compared to our current directed energy weapons, they are an enormous leap. As someone who spent years working with lasers and optics systems, I can tell you, they sit so far off our current tech tree that if you saw the damage assessments from a pulse without context, you would think they were misprints. But compared to Council weapons, they are Nerf guns, training wheels per se.
I think this is a good time to re-cue that SDI video from the beginning, if you could.
Yeah, that was good.
Let's check it out.
We were just showing the people, and they're like, "What's hitting my retinas right now? I don't even get the context."
That's what I was thinking.
But now the context is here, baby. So this is from Reagan. If you guys are older, you guys might remember this program in the early mid 80s, late 70s. They called it Star Wars, or SDI, Space Defense Initiative. UAP GERB and a lot of other people who study the money, the paper trail on where our tax dollars goes to secret black budget projects. The SDI project was a big black hole and eventually got canceled because they couldn't account for all the money they were getting. And we hypothesized that they were funneling this money into black budget UFO programs and these space laser programs. I think they got caught charging like $5,000 for a toilet seat, stuff like that. Like thousands of dollars for like a cigarette, ashtray. And they're like, this is not making any sense. So the CIA was just essentially funneling taxpayer dollars for the SDI program into UFO programs and classified space lasers. Did it really get shut down? I don't think so. I think the planetary defense grid is well functioning like a well-oiled machine because the 3-Eye Atlas is part of that planetary defense grid system. And we were just looking at some satellites that were tracking it, classified Cassandra imagery. So let's check it out. Let's see what they're proposing. This is supposedly what Rhea is saying the Arids are arming us with, and the Council is.
Here, an artist's projection of the president's vision.
Banning into space, a layered defense to protect the country from nuclear devastation. U.S. spy satellites would watch the world below, detect Soviet missiles blasting off, compute the position and speed of each missile, alert battle stations in space, on Earth. The first response: space-based kinetic energy weapons fire high-speed projectiles from hypervelocity guns, intercepting enemy missiles as they are boosted through the atmosphere. Popped up into space, Earth-based nuclear-powered X-ray lasers fire their radioactive rays.
Nuclear-powered X-ray
Attack
lasers.
rays from land-based excimer
In
lasers
space.
are redirected by huge mirrors orbiting in space.
Giant
Chemical
mirrors
lasers
orbiting
fire
reflecting
beams that
lasers.
burn through the shell
Chemical
of the
lasers.
onrushing missile. Particle beam weapons with pulsing rays join the attack.
Particle beam
Still over
weapons
the
with pulsing
atmosphere,
rays. That's
the missile
scalar.
bus ejects its cargo, multiple nuclear warheads. As the remaining Soviet missiles now arc towards the U.S., ground-based projectiles are volleyed into space. Their giant steel ribs shatter the enemy weapons. The final minute. The surviving warheads enter the atmosphere above the United States, are attacked by laser-equipped planes. Earth-based
TR-3B
lasers
has that
and
red
radiant
laser.
rockets eliminate the last warheads.
The administration's original claim for the Strategic Defense Initiative was that it would be a perfect.
Heck yeah. So I think that's a great intro on what the Irids and the Council are giving us. So they're secretly arming us to protect ourselves with a space defense laser platform. And we're going to get deeper into the story as we go. I got a lot of good stuff, but we can finish this up. You're muted, Magma.
Whoops, my bad. All right. So, finishing off this whistleblower Reddit post. Anyway, that decision set off another big argument, both among them and among us. The obvious concern was simple. Once the external threat is gone, what stops us from turning these things on each other the same way we took nuclear power and turned it into thousands of warheads aimed at our own cities? On the US side, there were people saying exactly that, and some members of the council argued that if we on Earth roll out scalar systems across arsenals, the first real test after the bugs are gone will likely be some crisis where two human governments start lighting each other up with the technology that we do not fully understand. The counter-argument, which won, was that species-level survival has to come first. If humanity gets wiped out by someone else's petty feud, then the entire debate is academic. Also, if humans fight this off themselves instead of watching the council show up and save the day, they will meet the wider community as people who actually did something, not as rescued primitives. Human ego intact. And kill switch, if you will, and kill switch, another little typo, has been built into the tech to disable it after the contact which the council sees us winning. If we then decide to use these weapons against each other, they'll simply be disabled until we humans have learned enough to disable the kill switch, which could be thousands of years from now for all I know. So against
Checks
a lot
out.
of...
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, against a lot of internal resistance, the Council has been quietly providing scalar phase systems to several blocs, not just the US. The list I saw included the United States, China, the European Union, through specific channels, Russia, and Brazil. Those systems are being integrated into space platforms, aircraft, and undersea assets. Testing is happening in remote places and high altitudes, often disguised as other things. Most of the people physically working on it think it is an advanced, homegrown black program. Only a very small circle in each capital sees the full context. I got to see pieces of that picture shortly before I was pushed into retirement, which is a polite way of saying I stopped being convenient. That is as specific as I am willing to get.
Track the IP.
Yep. There is one more reason I am writing this now, after pondering it for a long time, and it is more personal than the 2-year clock. A friend of mine, someone I worked closely with inside the program, another EO specialist, had been talking quietly years ago about going to Congress. Not with everything, they were not suicidal, just enough to force a real closed-door hearing in the Senate, get the true nature of certain SAPs special access programs, acknowledged on paper, making it harder to bury the whole subject under jokes and career threats. Over as year ago, I got word that they died. The official explanation has been vague and unsatisfying. Medical complications on a trip to a black site in the Indian Ocean. Those medical complications do not match what I know about their health. Then it became an accident at home, with no details anyone will put in writing.
Gotcha.
People who would normally be candid went very quiet very fast. Maybe it was just bad luck. People do die suddenly, but given the threats which are known about within certain IC sectors, when one is associated with this subject, I don't know for sure. What I do know is that the last long conversation I had with them was about whether it was worth trying to talk to certain congressional staffers for a certain senator. After hearing recent news confirming publicly much of what I know to be true privately, I stopped telling myself I would wait and see how things played out. Life is short. So here we are, some stranger on the internet telling you an unbelievable story you are free not to believe. With roughly
And
2
that's
years...
exactly what we are. Strangers on the internet telling you exactly what not to believe. And we hope we're deciphering it well enough for you guys, and you guys are enjoying it. Again, hit that like button to help us get this to the front page so people can know the story of the Eridani or the secret Nazis that are lying to us. And hit that subscribe button so you're up to date with all of the celestial information. You have been reading for a while. I want to keep it going, I guess. I'll finish it out.
You don't want me to read? Oh, no.
Let it rip, yeah. I can hit it, chocolate chip.
Pass it to Taylor.
All right. With roughly 2 years on the clock and the current rate of leaks and whistleblowers and half disclosures, it is very unlikely they'll keep all this under wraps until the first time something openly not from here appears in our sky or our orbit. 3i Atlas? At some point before that happens, at least one major government, maybe more, is going to go public in a controlled way. My guess would be China or the US, but it could be one of the others on that scalar weapon list. You will likely get a very carefully worded announcement about unidentified aerial phenomena, about contact with non-human intelligences, about new defensive technologies, and unprecedented international cooperation. It will be designed to manage panic and control the story. Ooh. I mean, the fact that they say that, are they trying to convince us that they're not part of the PSYOP? Because that's what it doesn't sound like that's what they're doing, but that could be the psychological effect.
It sounds like a white hat. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like an internal white hat trying to get the truth out.
It does. It does. So that's just an interesting line in determining the kind of which side are they on thing. So what you probably will not hear in the first rounds of briefings is the part about the Arids, the economic implications of their society's existence, the billion other habitable planets, the undersea infrastructure that has been here longer than we have had bones. You will not see anyone step up to the podium and say, oh, by the way, there is a branch of humanity that grew up without the idea of money and scarcity 10,000 years ago and advanced 5 millennia past us. That is why I'm dumping
They do say
this
it there
year.
10,000 years ago, I guess.
Right. They kind of reveal that around that same time they did take those 65,000. That's why I'm dumping this here, where people can ignore it, laugh at it, or save it and see how it ages. Like I said, do not have to believe me. I am not here to sell a book, go on podcasts, be on TV, or do UFO lectures. Treat this as fiction if it makes you more comfortable. What I am really trying to do is get you to think past the kiddie pool questions. Are UFOs real? Are the NHI good or evil?
Kiddie pool questions.
Is not the interesting part. That's exactly what we say. This person is
We're screaming that
HQ.
all day long. Exactly. Every time I listen to these interviews, I'm like, dude, really? We're still trying to figure out if they're real or not.
The far more interesting questions are what happens to this planet once everyone knows that we are being watched, that we have cousins around another star, and that some of the basic assumptions we build our societies around were just one option.
We might have wrote this in our sleep. We might have sleep wrote this, dude.
This might be us just trying to make a live stream that blows up. It's entirely constructed. We are the PSYOP.
We are the PSYOP. Just for the live stream.
We
what it
are
was.
doing UFO lectures. We are going on podcast and TV.
And Rhea is a anagram for Deadrick, Taylor, and Magma. No, I'm
Yep.
kidding.
Right, that's the big reveal at the end. Here's the timestamp. I logged it on the blockchain. I wrote this before this was posted. Right, so the last sentence, that some of the basic assumptions we built our societies around are just one option, not a fundamental law of nature. If in a year or two you start hearing officials talk about our cousins in the stars, our cousins among the stars, or civilizations far older than ours, and new non-kinetic systems and shared planetary HQ,
Hear it all.
and shared planetary defense, remember this post and see how well it fits. Look, the bugs are coming either way. The council's not going to save us directly. They already handed out the tools and they are watching to see what we do with them. The part that is still up to us is what kind of world we build if we get through it. Will we all go back to work and beat each other over the head with really advanced sticks, or do we achieve a more enlightened potential? That is all I have. Rhea.
Damn.
Beautiful.
Mic drop.
Ooh.
That was amazing, Rhea. We appreciate your hard work. Thank you so much for giving us content for our live stream.
And salute
but-
if you're real, if you're sincere. Salute
if
to you coming out and putting some information out there, because it does play into the greater spectrum, especially concerning the council and the higher celestial levels. Yeah, we are taking this seriously, despite, our fun that we like to have on the show. We do take this
Once it out.
seriously because a part of this is true no matter what.
Period. Straight up. And yeah, shout out to you, Rhea. You got some diarrhea stuff coming to you. No, we appreciate that. Like I said, we try to balance the seriousness with the jokes so that we can eat it all at once, because it's boring when you're too logical or only telling jokes. We mix it together. But seriously, I think we're doing a great job so far. Everything she said, we're hitting it to the T, sentence by sentence, revealing more. And if you're listening to this yourself and you're like, damn, this is a good live stream. These guys are good. Let us know. Reach out to us. Deadrick at planetary-hq.com. Taylor at planetary-hq.com. Reach out to us. If we're getting close to what you're saying, and you're like, damn, how do these guys know all this information? Reach out. We'd like to speak with you. Now, we've been killing it, but we still got more. Obviously. I got some hotness for you guys. This is where I get to interject my childhood past. So I spent a long time last night looking up a specific webpage that I read when I was like 13 or 14. And it still exists. I found it.
Nice, bro.
I fucking found it, dude. I was like, holy shit. Biblioteca Pleiades. In Spanish, that's
Zoom
the
in,
Pleiadian
enhance.
library. The Pleiadian library, I guess you would say.
There we go.
So
That's better.
this has to do with Majestic 12, the ultimate secret. Supposedly this is revealing what truly is going on with the whole UFO conspiracy. Okay, we're going to start with conclusions. And it lines up exactly with what she's talking about. So when I first read this Reddit post, I was like, okay, is this a LARP? What stories is she pulling from? Because I'm an addict. I've read most of the damn stories out there. If you've said something I haven't heard of, that's kind of a hot take. So you can tell by the person's story what sources they pulled from. And I was trying to see, is she just regurgitating, reiterating something that's already previously been said? And it reminded me of another narrative that we've come across. Multiple people have probably come across this narrative, but let's just dive right into it. So this is from the US government and our secret space program, the ultimate secret, Majestic 12. So the ultimate secret is that Magi and the US government has in its possession spaceships manufactured on other worlds, as well as the occupants of those interstellar crafts. And that since 1964 has maintained radio contact with aliens through Project Sigma. They have also entered into various technical and trade agreements with the beings from Zeta Reticuli, named the Greys. Note, communication with the Greys by Project Sigma has been an accomplished fact since April of 1964. Therefore, the NASA-sponsored SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is merely being used as another method to provide covert funding for Magi projects under the guise of a legitimate program. Already saying the right stuff. I mean, this was out in the early 2000s, you know. That's what SDI got caught doing, using it as a way to provide covert funding for other programs. The Greys, as their part of the trade agreements, were to provide Magi and the U.S. government with various forms of advanced technology. In exchange, the Greys were provided with secret bases of operation within the United States, bases protected by the Greys and the U.S. military forces. In exchange, Magi agreed to conceal all knowledge of their presence. Magi is a council of all of the intel agency directors. They're like the supreme council. You've probably heard of the Majestic 12, the Magi. These are a group of people that call all the shots on the UFOs, and they stem from the U.S. intel agencies. Supposedly George Bush, Dick Cheney were on this list. Part of the trade agreements was an exchange program that allowed the aliens to abduct U.S. citizens for experimental, medical, psychological, and genetic research purposes. The Greys were to provide lists of persons abducted to the National Security Agency for later government follow-up if such persons, when released, required medical assistance or psychological adjustment. A little synopsis of the whole Earth-Grey agreement. Nice. During 1972 to 1973, a period of 2 years, an area south of Groom Lake, one of the nation's most secret test centers in Nevada, was closed and a huge underground facility was constructed for and with the help of the Greys. This facility was built south of Area 51 in another location named Area S4. Bob Lazar. This location is just east of and adjacent to the Nevada Atomic Test Site. It's managed by the NNSA and the N2S2. The bargain for technology was set in place. They could be operated by the Greys themselves. They could only be operated by the Greys themselves to prevent the Greys' advanced technology from being used against them. So all the technology the Greys gave to the humans, they said that only the Greys could operate it, because, you know, the humans could have fucking turned it against them. Another secret underground base was provided to the Greys in a location known as the Ice Caves near the Los Alamos Laboratory Facility in New Mexico. Over a period of the next 6 years, 4 more secret bases were provided the Greys in other isolated areas of the U.S. During the year 1979 through 1983, it became increasingly obvious to Magi that things were not going as planned. It became known that many more people, in the thousands, were being abducted than were being listed on the official abduction list. The list the Greys were supplying the National Security Council and Magi, it was apparent that the abductions included much more than simple monitoring experiments of an advanced civilization. In 1979, things had gotten almost entirely out of hand when it became known that the Greys had implanted a tiny probe, 3 millimeter in size, into the brains of certain abductees before releasing them. Magi investigators determined the probe could be used to hypnotically and telepathically program and monitor the person. In addition, some abductees were programmed with unknown post-hypnotic commands. The Greys also implanted tracking devices just under the skin on some abductees to monitor their movements. This is lining up with Wesley Strieber, all these people who claim to have implants in their skins that couldn't be removed. Whitley Strieber, I said Wesley, sorry. Attempts by hypnosis to determine the nature of the hypnotic programming and commands implanted by the Greys, triggered life-threatening physical symptoms in these individuals, making those efforts unsuccessful. It was later discovered that the Greys were performing genetic crossbreeding experiments on some of the human female abductees.
Wow.
In 1983, Magic discovered the full magnitude of the grand deception put over by the Greys. They were also shocked when the Soviet Union admitted that they too had been deceived and that the Greys had entered into similar treaties and agreements with them. Magi was in a state of confusion and near panic as they realized their plans were dashed, along with their hopes and dreams of obtaining the Greys' technology and the secrets of interstellar spaceflight. So they're talking about the USSR also getting this technology, and it kind of screwed with our head because we're like, oh, we thought we had this exclusive agreement. So now we're really freaking out. This caused Magi to become split along factional lines, one faction advocating confessing the scheme and the shambles it had become to the public, begging for their forgiveness and asking for their support. Then it says, note, this faction is responsible for the leaks of sensitive information regarding the activities of Operation Majestic 12. So it's saying they got split in factions. So maybe some of the leaks we're getting from these people are part of the faction that wants to disclose this entire information. That we made a treaty with the wrong ones. The other faction rejected this, saying there's no way they could do that. We can't reveal this to the public, even though the situation was untenable, stating that there is no use in alarming the public of either country of the horrible truth. This second faction won out, and their plan to develop a weapon that could be used against the Greys was accepted by the Soviet Union. Under the guise of SDI, the video we just showed, Star Wars, a joint US-Soviet effort. So that video showed us that to the public, we're saying these lasers are to shoot out USSR nukes before they get to us. But it's saying here that's a guise. It's really a joint US-Soviet effort. The Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, Star Wars, this weapon was developed. SDI has nothing whatsoever to do with the defense against Soviet nuclear missiles. The nickname Star Wars was closer to the truth than the uninformed public realized. The alarm publicly expressed by the Soviet Union regarding SDI and its opposition to the program were all artfully crafted to conceal the joint nature of the program and to prevent the Greys from learning its real purpose. The United States and the Soviet Union have been secret allies since 1983.
Wow.
Yeah. Primarily, SDI is a weapon for use against the Greys' underground bases or any attempted invasion from space. However, to achieve funding from Congress and support from the people, and to conceal its real nature from the Greys, it had to be presented as a defense against a nuclear strike from USSR. The Soviet equivalent of Magi used the same technique, the development of a weapon to protect their country from a US nuclear strike, to obtain covert funding for the joint effort. So pretty much that's the main angle I wanted to get to is, the ant people are coming. We're getting technology from a higher race, according to this Reddit post, in order to protect ourselves from a degenerate type of gray ant-like race, okay? And that in the Reddit post, it says the scalar weaponry was given to the US, China, Russia, and we're all, kind of secret allies to try to defend the planet from this external threats. Call them the Greys, call them the ant people, call it whatever you want. I want to talk about other stuff from 1980, so check this out. There's some secret mission logs these guys did really deep dives into, talking about every NASA mission concerned with putting the space lasers and Project SDI into space. And they have it by date and exactly what launches they were connected to. So 4483 Project Zeus SDI Shuttle Challenger Mission STS-6 NASA KSC release number 10786. The first flight of the Shuttle Challenger lifted off at 1:30 p.m. EST. Payload a TDRS-A, a tracking and data relay satellite deployed on the first day of the mission. That's funny. So the very first mission of the Space Shuttle Challenger was to put up a classified SDI space satellite. The Challenger was one that exploded with a teacher on it. That space shuttle, the famous Space Shuttle Challenger. If you keep going down, skip a couple of these flights. And see, I want to see, there's some ones with some interesting payloads.
There's a lot of information here.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if
It's
I
a
can
good
find
resource.
it. What every launch in the 80s had on top of it, or what the payload was for it. Let's see if I can find it. There's one that has a very interesting payload. Okay, well, check this out. In 9/29/88, the communication experiment inside the shuttle spacecraft was testing a new voice communication system using infrared waves rather than standard radio waves. An advantage of infrared is it cannot pass through the spacecraft's windows, as can radio waves. Infrared communications would prevent a spacecraft from eavesdropping, thus protecting sensitive astronaut conversations and enhancing security and the crew's privacy. Note, the extraordinary procedure must pertain to the Greys so that they couldn't eavesdrop on our stuff.
Oh yeah, it says note the word spacecraft. Whose? Earlier NASA missions had reported UFO encounters. The Greys are suspicious.
Yep.
I love
And
this idea that a lot of the secrecy in the intelligence agencies isn't because the Russians or the Chinese might uncover our technology. It's actually
exactly.
among us to prevent the
To hide
Greys
our,
who are already here
yes.
from hearing.
Or the ant people that are on their way already.
Mm.
Right? It makes sense. And that's why they're so white knuckled. You'll never be able to get the compartmentalization away from them because this is the way they protect our planet from the external forces. Look at 12/2/88, Project Zeus SDI Shuttle Atlantis, mission STS-27. The newest shuttle Atlantis lifted off today from Kennedy Space Center on a classified mission for the Department of Defense. Let's see, it names the military personnel, Commander Robert L. Gibson, pilot, mission specialist, and then it says, look what the payload. Note, the payload consists of 2 orbiting mirrors for the SDI communications spy satellite for the Department of Defense. There's pictures of these mirrors. They're like super highly polished mirrors for reflecting scalar weapons and laser weapons to specific points.
That's so profoundly complicated when you think about
Yes.
the all the trajectories and the angles in space and getting them so precise for lasers to bounce off mirrors and hit a target that's moving.
Yes, exactly. And this is in the DoD records. If you want to take the time and look into it, you're going to find all this information. This is exactly the same time frame during the Reagan Star Wars SDI missions. And there's other paperwork you can find. Once the entire mirror network and laser network is deployed, guess what? It's not pointing down towards the Earth like you would expect to stop Soviet nukes. They're all facing outwards towards the outer solar system. Why is that? Are they protecting us from an invasion coming from outside the solar system? I thought this entire network was supposed to be pointed at Earth just in case we got nuked from Soviet Russia, you know? So it shows that there's a lot of interesting intel discrepancies that, pertain to this entire subject. Now, I do got something else. See if I can find it real quick. How do you guys feel about that?
Mind equals blown.
Pretty
Checks
cool, right?
out. I
Like,
think
it kind of lines up with them, right? They're hiding the technology and arming our planetary space defense grid so that we can protect ourselves from some incoming alien invasion.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. This entire plot was laid out by Bill Cooper in 1991 in his book "Behold a Pale Horse." That the U.S. government has a network of secret societies with ancient origins, and that the U.S. government in the 40s made contact with these beings from the Zeta Reticuli system. There was a trade agreement, all this stuff. Now it's kind of baked into the UFO lore, and you hear people talking about it. But it's amazing that we can kind of still have these discussions today. It's still piquing our curiosity and whetting our appetite.
Yeah, it is very much so. And it's kind of funny how there's like records lining up with all this kind of stuff. It's matching exactly what Rhea is saying. Either Rhea's just regurgitating or reiterating all this stuff, or this stuff is true and you're getting a firsthand whistleblower testimony of someone who encountered these documents within our own intel agencies. If it's true, it should all line up. Or it could just be a LARP, but check this out. Exact same time, Reagan is giving some cryptic speeches. Let's hear what he has to say. This is the President of the United States. Listen to what he has to say. Sharing my screen right now for the people.
I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us, we can bring about that realization.
So this are 3 different clips of Reagan talking about this. That's number 1. He's straight up saying it to the people. We can't wait for an alien invasion because we need to bind together because we're humans. We're humanity. Why is he floating this around the exact same time frame we're arming our planetary defense grid, which is mirroring what this whistleblower is talking about? Very interesting. Let's go into the second clip he has.
Obsession with antagonisms of the moment. We often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Ooh.
What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war? I think maybe
Part 2, that's, a lot of energy and work goes behind preparing presidential speeches, like a lot of for the United Nations. And he's speaking to the planet about an alien threat uniting humanity. At the same time frame, we're building the planetary defense system. Come on, guys. It's all lining up. This is the President of the United States. Go to the last clip.
I'd answer it this way. I keep, in my frustration sometimes, actually, if you count some of the things going on in smaller countries and all, there have been about 114 wars since World War II. But I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all? We were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that particular threat?
See, boom, he's saying it right there.
Senator Hatfield,
flat as you can to our face.
Mr. Chief Justice.
Oops.
Mr.
And I don't know. I don't think there's any beating around the bush. According to what we just read, the U.S. and the Russians have had a secret space program and were actually allies. It seems like he knows that, and he's trying to prep the people. Like, look, I know we're in the Cold War right now. It seems like U.S. and America hate each other. There's a lot of wars going on, but he's saying we can overcome that with the thought of an alien invasion. So that's very interesting, very compelling, given these speeches in America and in the United Nations. I'm just saying, Planetary HQ is here to provide evidence based on the subject that we're focusing on. And with this Reddit Rhea whistleblower, we're trying to put everything on the table so that you can eat a a Thanksgiving cosmic smorgasbord. And this is one of the points. From this little Reddit post, we were able to pull out the Always Sunny in Philadelphia conspiracy board, with all the red lines and the tinfoil hat on our heads, and literally dissect it. She's talking about a lot of cross-correlating points in the UFO sphere. Second I read it, it started stimulating some nerves in me. And I'm glad we were able to make this video so that hopefully you guys can digest all these points and see that either this post is copying and LARPing on a bunch of old angles, or all those cross-correlating data points are further supporting the credibility of this post. And not only that, she introduces a new angle of Erids, humans taken from Earth 10,000 years ago and built on another planet, and they advance 5,000 years past us like that. That's a hot take. That's a hot angle. It's synthesizing all of these data points and adding something new, a little cherry on top. And that's what we love diving into. That's why we are Planetary HQ. So it's kind of weird that he's making these addresses to the world at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty unusual.
And let's
Yeah,
get swaggy in a minute, Tay.
Okay. I wanted to shout out here. I found I remembered that part of the newer UAP laws that did get put in place was that there was something about the National Archives starting to collect UAP related material, right? And so it just reminded me to go to the National Archives just to look for like the SDI program stuff. And so I did find an archival page from the Ronald Reagan Library, from reaganlibrary.gov, which is the official like presidential library and museum for his terms. And I put that link in the chat and then also the description, because it is kind of cool to actually go into some of the original documents and read like what's going on, because I guess you can definitely find some juicy elements. I was trying to find like
I want to do a full episode on this, dude.
Right,
Trust me, full episode on the SDI coming soon. Trust.
I'm hoping that we find some unseen videos that you can't just find on YouTube. In these archives,
National Archives, Congressional Archives. We can make a trip together, boys, if you want. We have to go to the Library of Congress ourselves and peruse the documents. That'd be a great little.
Not
trip.
Everything's digitized and online yet, so that's like an access point. So, but anyway, I just wanted to kind of shout that out. But overall, this Reddit post, I really did enjoy it. Like we said, there's a couple new things. I will say, like, if you're on the skeptic angle, I will say that they did in this post, they like mentioned, like name dropped like a lot of popular ideas that have been being talked about. And you could take that one of two ways. One, you could say that if it's a LARP or like an intelligence agency PSYOP, they're just making sure that they basically have a type of commentary on all the hot stuff going on in UFO Dom right now, right? And so, and then they make a cohesive story, but then it's still got that threat narrative of Aliens 2027, right? But on the flip side, it could just be someone in the program who's been, like they said in the article, they've been watching and they notice a lot of the stuff being talked about they have heard in their time in the program. They're surprised that any of it's coming out at all, and this is prompting them to actually give a little bit more information from their perspective. So, those are the two sides we're on. But I wanted to point out, here's a couple things that I noticed that they hit that you could say is a bit suspicious that they made comments on all of it. So one of them is they mentioned biologics and relating them to like the Greys and androids, right? The whole biologics term, right, is new. David Grush presented that a couple years ago in his interview. He talked about how when we recover these craft, biologics and the pilots come with it, right? Another thing is just commenting on crash retrievals, right? Rhea mentioned, I think, Roswell and that other one on a Air Force base that was actually a gift to us to see what we would do, right? So obviously, this article is tapping the crash retrieval topic. It's also playing into what you could call the Eisenhower Agreement, where there was agreements made between, which we covered a lot of that. It's tapping into that theme. Undersea Base got really popular with the 4chan whistleblower, right? So they're talking about that. Ant People is already a long time in the lore. Scalar Weapons as well is a long time in UFO lore. And then there's also a sort of psychological effect that this person is looping themselves in with the whistleblowers that we do respect, right? So understand that is definitely a specific position. Again, I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. the reason that they give in the article of why they're talking is because they have a friend in the program who was thinking about talking to Congress, and they saw them get offed, right? So that, you could consider that a sort of like, obviously we all wonder what would inspire them to write this article. So they included that because they know it's not often that people come out. But it's also, I guess you could say an easy excuse to make up, be like, yeah, I have someone else in the program and they died. Because we all sort of believe that people are killed over this. And it also it makes us feel empathetic to the whistleblower when we read that. So that's just my kind of I guess skeptic's take if you really want to go on the other side. But nonetheless, all that being said, I think this is more positive, I guess, movements forward. It wasn't, it's still focused on that threat angle, that whole building up to 2027 idea, which we have a lot of argument about. A lot of people in UFO field think that is a psyop. Jeremy Corbell's on record on his TMZ documentary saying that the government's going to tell you there's an alien ship coming and then it's going to be a lie. So all these topics are really, it's moving right now. But nonetheless, the fact that Congress is so involved, age of disclosure, new documentary stirring the waters, something is happening. And so I guess the overall goal of this channel, again, is to correlate data points without making final conclusions or creating unnecessary belief systems. Even though we go into a lot of topics, we have our own concepts. There's some quote that says we don't need beliefs, we just need better questions. So that's my sort of, I think, pitch, my words of power to all the viewers. Come up with better questions. We need to escape the kiddie pool of, are UFOs real?
Mm-hmm.
We'll tell you they're real. I don't know. Just move on. Just move on to the question do you need more proof? Because once the proof comes, then there's going to be all these other questions that come. So at least put the proof question to rest for a small second and let that unfold at the government level, because it's not going to, the proof that you're wanting can't come out without that, I think, level of participation. Congress has to make moves to pull that out. But in the meantime, start asking the bigger questions. And that's what we're going to do here on Planetary HQ.
Yeah. I love this idea that a lot of presidential administrations and a lot of presidents were at least partially read into a secret space program or something like that. I know Bob Lazar and Dan Bursch referred to receiving binders with information about the Zeta Reticuli system and all that, and they were unclear how reliable that information was. If they were being fed misinformation, just to give them some kind of explanation or even throw them off. So if they came forward with disclosure, it could easily be refuted. Skywatch Signal says in the chat here, beating around the bush, LOL, he knew. George Bush, H.W. Bush.
I think he's talking about, he sent that when we were playing the Reagan speech.
Okay, I just saw because he capitalized Bush and was like, LOL,
Yeah.
he knew. I know Bush had an initiative, and he was quoted with talking about 1,000 points of lights, like stars, spreading across the community or whatever like that. And a lot of conspiracy theorists say that was a symbolic message referring to his knowledge of secret programs like Majestic 12. So I don't know, it's a lot of fun just to draw all these connections. So yeah, just stay with us as we continue to keep our finger on the pulse of disclosure, whistleblowers, live action role plays on Reddit.
Heck yeah.
I feel like there's definitely kernels of truth within all of this, and the best way to kind of filter out and sift through the truth is to compare and draw connections with every bit of information that we can get our hands on. The truth is what kind of resonates among all of it. All the little unnecessary details will fall away in the process.
Amen. Like Skywatcher Signal just said, Bush did know. That's right. He did know. He did know part of the Majestic program, but that's for a different episode. Hope you guys enjoyed this session. Thank you for sharing this moment in time and space with us. remember to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button so you're up to date with all the celestial broadcasts. We hopefully chop that up. We slice it up to a billion different pieces. The Project Eridani Reddit whistleblower Rhea. Hope you guys walk away from this with a little bit more information. Hopefully you can have some good tabletop dinner conversation with anybody who asks, hey, do you see this one post on Reddit? And you'd be like, actually, boom, send them this link, info dump them, and make them think you're crazy so they'll never talk to you again. But again, remember who you guys are. You are more than what you think you are, man. Like this post is saying, you are something that is great. You could make the planet become not a utopia, not a perfect civilization, but a much more harmonious civilization that we currently have. This whole resource scarcity, dog eat dog world that isn't hard baked, that isn't programmed into our reality. That is just one option, and there's better options. I truly believe we will get to the stage as a planetary civilization, and that is why we decided to step up, take the mic, and try to preach from the rooftops to our brothers and sisters like, hey, snap out of the rat race. There's a different option. There's a different mode of living, and we can get to this goal together through mind, body, spirit progress. That's what we're trying to do. That's why we exist. We're going to put a mind, body, spirit app in everybody's phone and everybody's pocket so that you can track your mind, body, spirit progress, and you can link up with other people who want to hit their potentials too. Think about Instagram, you show your ass, you show your money, you show a Ferrari, you get upvotes and likes, right? But we want your upvotes to be based on your mind, body, spirit progress. We think that's going to be the future of society, the future of social media. So with your likes, with your subscribes, with your donations, shout out to everybody who gave us super chat today. You're helping us and you're helping other people hit their mind, body, spirit potential. So donations help. We also have merch. We have t-shirts. I'm not wearing it right now. Link will be in the description. Go check out our store. Every time you buy a shirt, it's going to help us increase the planet mentally, physically, and spiritually by getting that app out. The truth is out there. We're trying to decipher it so that you can understand it. Remember who you are. If you're hearing this, you are the resistance. Planetary HQ, Debake the Wise. Tay Chilla. Magma Sloth. Any last words? We'll be in Monterey, California next year, July 24th to 27th at the Urantia International Conference, doing a live stream. Join if you live in the area. And we have a full list of tour dates coming out soon. We're going to be traveling a lot next year, so stay tuned to Planetary HQ, baby.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is remember, whether aliens are coming in 2027 or if it's just a fake psyop, there is one t-shirt that you would like to be wearing, hopefully, during that moment. And leave now if you don't want to see an ad, because this is an ad with a cosmic transmission encoded. So there is a secret. So if you don't want to watch an ad, but you want to figure out a mysterious coded secret, you might want to watch this. So just saying, that's how we're going to leave you today. Thanks for watching, everybody.
I need your attention, everybody. This just in. The New Jersey drones are now over New York, LA, and every major capital on the face of planet Earth. They keep repeating a message over the 6 gigahertz frequency band, and it keeps saying, Planetary HQ has cosmic garments for your physical mechanism. In other words, we got that drip. Straight from the Galactic Federation wardrobe, these tees vibrate at the frequency of chill. Ribbed knit collars lovingly hug your neck chakra, preventing collar droop across dimensions. Tapered shoulders enhance your interstellar silhouette, perfect for Earth missions and beyond. Dual side seams stabilize your style, ensuring your energy stays aligned even when encountering planetary turbulence. Crafted from 100% classified heirloom combed and ring-spun cotton, this feather-light fabric breathes like you're cruising through the astral plane. Ideal for layering beneath your space cloak or relaxing at your Earth base. The tailored retail fit transitions seamlessly from casual Earthling mode to I've got crystals in my pocket and I ain't from here chic. making it essential apparel for your rigorous interdimensional journey. So check out them shirts. We got a bunch of different colors. Link is in the description. Your contributions directly support spiritual operations on the front line in the battle for truth, beauty, and righteousness. With your help, we can help change the face of planet Earth, and we can look fly while doing it. Okay, now that we can fund the Black Budget Anti-Grav program,